Hello, everybody. Welcome. So unbelievably excited for today's class. Level 1, Lesson 16, The Death Journey. I know I did this last week too when it was all about cancer. It's like, you're excited to talk about cancer. Yes, I'm excited to talk with you about the death journey. Every time that I do my classes now, I go back into my original recordings that were done almost 10 years ago at this point, and I'm always so amazed by what I was thinking about then, how able I was to have clarity and articulation in bringing these ideas forward into a format that can be, that's like accessible, or lasagna that is digestible to other people, to get this across in comprehension terms, and how relevant it is to exactly what we're experiencing right now. So again, throughout this presentation, I'll say, this is what was recorded 10 years ago, but then I'll also update it. This is what we're experiencing 10 years later, because everything that I was talking about then is absolutely happening now. Everything that I talked about when I was preparing people 10 years ago, that's like doing the strength training in the gym. And then now we are actually doing the activity. We're actually now running the marathon or climbing the mountain or doing the thing that we were preparing our muscles for all of that time. And the muscles are the muscles of comprehension. So it's also, I have a lot of information to get through. So as I'm starting now, it's 11 a.m. However, this might go several hours. So I joke everyone, like, get your Gatorades, get your electrolytes, get your coffee, get settled, be prepared. This will be a long journey. A long, fun, amazing journey. And thank you for being with me on it. So thank you for everyone who's able to tune in on a Saturday morning. And also thank you for everybody who reaches these archives after the fact. You are still quantum entangled with the experience in the moment now. Level 1, death as a focuser of awareness. Death as a focuser of consciousness. Let's talk about death, first of all, using my diagram here. So this is a 3-dimensional representation of something that I draw in cross-section all the time. Here, I'm going to rotate it so you can see it. We've got essentially 4 vortexes. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's an implied one here and an implied one here. And at the center, you have the singularity, the source that is also the destination, the 0th dimension. Now, this is, again, recap for anyone who's been in the class for a while, but worthy recap. When I show you that sculpture, I ask that you pay attention to the lower quadrant. What I do now is I do this shorthand. Oh, let me change this view over here just to me. So this is my shorthand. Good, yeah, Chloe coming in. Of that lower quadrant, which you could see is a 3-dimensional object. So the timelines are actually spirals that spiral up around the vortex of time like this. In the interest of working on a flat screen as I'm drawing this, and in the interest of being able to see things more easily, I draw this as if each timeline is like a lollipop or an arrow going upward like this. So this is, hold on a minute, let me get this proper. Oh, good, lots of people are coming in. This is the year 0 or your birth. In this diagram, time marches upward in this direction. All of these lines represent timelines or parallel life possibilities, incarnations within one lifespan of various different possibilities that can happen in your life. This is a huge simplification diagram, but please understand that there's an almost uncountable number of timelines in the area where I'm coloring in pink. This would be considered life. This is the area of life, all right? And then I'm going to choose a different color. We'll use, I don't know. I don't want to choose a pretty color for the area of death. Okay, I will use black. I'm going to make this a super emphasized membrane, but where I am coloring right now, this is the membrane of death. And it is a flowing membrane, all right? So I made it like very fat, very thick looking. But please understand that it's a very, very thin membrane. Let me first talk about what this membrane is. This membrane, I'll go back to my face. This membrane, hello, welcome to everybody who just tuned in, is like the surface tension on a glass of water. I always tell everyone, I'm not drinking wine, I'm drinking water with my wonderful natural electrolyte powders in it here, because it's a marathon. At the surface of water or almost any liquid, there is a slight thickening of the liquid. That is known as a membrane called the meniscus, all right? And it also acts a little bit as a lens. It is a transition point between the air, which is in a different state, get it, the states of matter, as in solid, liquid, gaseous, plasma, energy. So it's in a different state. They are vacuuming upstairs, I'm so sorry. And then the liquid that is down here, and this represents the membrane between those two rates of being. I wanted to say states of being, but it's also rates of being, because really in human science, talking about state change means you're talking about molecular density. So in matter that is solid, the molecules are densely packed together with not that much movement. They're kind of bumping a little bit, they're kind of shoulder to shoulder. In liquid, they have more space. They can kind of wiggle their arms outward like this, and they kind of flow all around. It's molecular movement. And then in a gaseous state, which everybody wave your hand around your face in front of your room, like you're surrounded by gases. Molecules are even further apart. Like imagine, you know, whatever, my arms are 3 times longer. And there's much, much more movement with all these things. The state is defined by the level of density and the fastness of movement of the molecules within that density. And then if I had a flame, I would show you this is plasma and it's fire, and that's the molecules being, you know, even further apart. Same thing with this sculpture. So again, I return your attention to the lower quadrant, this that I just drew right down here on your screen. You can see that time vortex. Where I'm pointing with my finger, that is the membrane of death. That membrane, you can see, is the extension of a big giant circle. So here's how energy circulates throughout this torus. That's a circle or a sphere. And it goes in a figure 8. Crossing point is at the 0th dimension, up and across. For anyone who's in my dance class, we dance these movements with our body, with our macroscopic limbs, and with our tiny little jiggling DNA inside. So this is one of the basic movements of energy around the chakra system. So again, this right here and this right here, those are the membranes of death. And in a healthy, functional chakra system, be it your own or the planetary or the galactic universal, big scale, there should be clarity there. It should just be a clear space that energy can flow through. We have been experiencing the repercussions and reverberations of, I would call them negative time experiments, that are blowback of ancient or ongoing or almost uncountable time experiences of things filling up those membranes. So to go back to my whiteboard over here, hold on a minute while I get myself together. This area, this membrane of death, should be a place where energy can just flow through without impediment. So that means, like, let's say if you're on this timeline over here and you're spiraling up, 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 you get to this moment right here. It is your last moment. What happens? Your genetic sweater is unraveled. You should become back into your puzzle pieces or your constituent elements. Flow with the membrane of death. That's that flowing force back to the beginning, back to birth, but on a different footprint, a different starting point at the starting line, and then run the race slightly differently, making slightly different choices. And that this whole diagram is a way of visualizing the truth of you going through the various possibilities, field of possibilities of your life, in and being refined, your trajectory being refined, trajectory being like, are you at a slanted angle like this going towards the membrane of death, or are you going up this central core timeline that is the perfect alignment with the wormhole that is the exit from this level of reality? I am drawing a giant wormhole, but please understand that that is huge exaggeration. It is actually the tiniest little doorway. It is a frequency door. So that's also in one of my songs. I said, go through the frequency door, door, door. And it's also a song that I wrote called The Open Door. That door that I'm referring to is a frequency door. And in order to go through it, one must be your chakras and your timelines and everything about you must be in that perfect alignment going up the center of this time vortex. And that also means your thoughts and your feelings and everything you've ever done or said or did in your life is perfect, like playing perfect music. Perfect music. Perfect music played throughout your whole entire life. You never played a wrong note, and now you're ascending. You're like, Aurora, that's too much pressure. Oh, don't worry, because part of this time diagram also helps one to understand that you have already been through all of the parallel realities where you did it wrong, where you like screwed up on that one, wrong note on that one. Because I also want you to know that when I go back to this, the membrane of death is like an equation. So if I say, let me just change colors so that you can comprehend this better. Here's like, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus blah, 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 many moments of life equals, here's the equals sign, or I could draw it in another orientation so that you get it more, equals your final moment here, all right? So number plus number plus number plus number plus number equals the end result of your equation of your life. It is mathematical, it is impersonal. So what I'm trying to share with you in terms of this diagram of what time is structured like and what death is to move beyond your cultural programmings. Death as a destroyer, death as, something from like the Ingmar Bergman film. There's like a shroud, he has a white face, he has a scythe, he's going to cut you down, away from those personalizations and anthropomorphisms and into the abstraction of what death actually is and what actually happens to you upon death. This is a big empowerment teaching. Like, I'll get into this. Death as a flowing membrane of energy. That's in my notes, I got that. It is comprised of little tiny final moments of one version of yourself. So here I'm going to draw them in red. So everything looks like a lollipop. Black stick, that is the timeline or vector that brought you to the membrane of death. And then the red dots are your final moments. And of course, it is symmetrical. It's on all of these. And it's rounded too. You understand you have them going around like this, but I'm just drawing the cross section, but I almost always draw them on the left. Please understand you have every single one of this area of the membrane of death is filled up with all of these little last moments of you. And when you look at them, it is like a little frozen version of you. Wait, I'll go back to my face so that you can kind of see. It is like a little frozen version of you. Like here's the version of you frozen, like as your car plows into a Mack truck on the highway, crash, that's the end of you. And then here's another one, like we'll choose a bizarre death. An alligator falls out of the sky and hits you in the head and you fall down and you die, crash, the alligator fell on your head. It's a great unlikelihood, but in some version of reality structure that actually happened. Or dead in a hospital bed, got a terrible disease, a shark bit off your face, whatever. All of those are the reality structures that moment plus moment plus moment plus moment plus moment equals this is your final death. This is your final moment. You can think of it as the final moment, freeze frame of the movie of your life, but you have many, many different edits of the movie of your life. So the membrane of death is a flowing membrane. The energy that flows upon that membrane is comprised of your final moments in parallel realities, different versions of you, multiple reincarnations in serial within one particular incarnated human lifetime. It contains the implied trajectory through time that brought you there. That's the black stick to the red final moment. The black stick is the implied trajectory. That's very, very special because it means that the last moment of who you are is a fractal of everything since the moment of birth. In that moment, in that snapshot of who you were, whatever, splattered on the pavement with the Mack truck running over you, that contains not just that moment, but also looking down the time tunnel, everything telescoping backwards that brought you to that moment. These are very, very special snapshots. I also call it your final denouement. That is like the culminative crescendo of something that happens in a movie. It is like the part of the math equation after the equal sign. This is a teaching to counteract cultural programming here. Death is far from something to be feared. Death is an impersonal force, a flow of energy. Literally, death is a membrane that is the boundary for life. And you should stay away from the boundary. You want to steer away from the boundary. I use the analogy all the time of bowling. I don't know if I've ever actually been bowling, but I've seen it. I know what it is. You want to get the ball down the middle of the bowling alley, and then there are the gutters on the sides, and you don't want the bowling ball of you, the infinitely heavy bowling ball of you on the sides, gutter balls. You don't want to be the gutter ball. So all of this trial and error within the choose your own adventure novel of your own life, if you guys remember those from grade school, brings you closer and closer and closer towards the inevitability of the pathway of the central core timeline. It is inevitable for you to reach that timeline. It is inevitable for you to realign all of your chakras to be in perfect alignment, all going up and down like this, all aligned with the source, the destination, infinity, the zeroth dimension, the place where you came from. God, I always tell you that, spoiler alert, God, you're God, remembering yourself, getting back home. When you reach that moment, you also have the I am God moment, the I am God moment. Aha, I am God, I am God. And that's a truthfulness. So in looking at the membrane of death, the big teaching here is, and this is also, like I said, to get past the cultural conditioning. In this world, we have a lot of stuff that is basically about objective materialism, lack of spirituality, lack of recognition of finer levels of being, and also disempowerment through ignorance. Many people here in this time and place, when you reach the membrane of death, don't know what the F is going on. Who am I? Where am I? What is happening? This teaching here, this video here today, actually gives you an empowerment to know what is happening in your life. And death is one particular experience that may happen through exploring the trajectory of multiple branching timelines of what you are in embodiment, and ascension is another. Death is what happens when you hit the membrane on the side. Ascension is what happens when you follow the central pathway and go up through the wormhole. And then I want to say go up my nose, go up into infinity. All right, you go into infinity, you continue on the infinite journey. So recognizing and relating to death in a personal sense, as you perceive that it's comprised of all the final versions of yourself. One cares about these versions of self who died. So that's seriously, don't go into sociopathy. Don't be like, doesn't matter, it's just a construct, it's like a cartoon character feature of me. No, those are real versions of you. Please care about yourself. Please love all of those very real versions of you that had some experience that was playing a wrong note, dun, 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 wah, and then hit the membrane of death. And also look at those senses of self as being helpers that are helping you to shift your consciousness of embodiment incrementally until you are finally in alignment with the central core timeline, the path of least likelihood, or ascension pathway, back to the source, the zeroth dimension, infinity, and God. That all of those versions of self explored negative denouements, or equations that did not work properly, or dead-end thought forms. And they did that in order to help you. First of all, it's you, but you can also say, listen to them. You should say, listen to those self states. Listen to those peripheral self states that basically will communicate to you here now, like, don't make that choice, stay away from that, getting close to the gutter ball, don't do that. They are definitely helper aspects of self, and you care about them, and they have performed their role, I want to say done their duty in terms of exploring, like, nope, those are not the places that you want to go. Death, the flowing membrane, is helping death, the impersonal force of the cosmic nature, is a flowing membrane. And it is also helping to focus your consciousness so that you will claim or become or inhabit or experience your highest version of yourself. Death as an impersonal force that is telling you, stay away from these reality structures over here. It's not the real you. It's not you in your greatness. It is not the highest version of you. Big, this is emphasized in my notes. Ascension as being the process of transmuting from one state to another without having to experience death. As I was just talking about, states of matter, liquid to gaseous. There is a transmutation that happens. If I put this water on the stove and applied heat energy to it, class, what would happen? Aurora, it would turn into steam. Yes, class, that is correct. It would change state and turn into steam as that extra heat kinetic energy forced the molecules to expand and move apart and move a lot faster, that it would turn into the next state of matter. That is what ascension is. I will read it again for all of you. Let me drink. Get to your question too, while it's still relevant. Ascension as being the process of transmuting from one state to another without having to experience death. Going at a slanted angle like this, hit the membrane, experience death. Going at a straight angle like this, avoiding the membrane of death. And this is the point where you transmute, go from one state of being into another state of being. You are able to get out of this particular realm through the tiny wormhole or frequency door without having to experience the flowing membrane of death. This is big. Many people are here and they're in the word is ennui, E-N-N-U-I. They're like, I'm so bored. I'm so existentially bored. I've been through the washing machine 10 million times. I've done this 10 million times before, through and through and through and through and through and everything. Get me out of here. I joke about that Calgon. Take me away. People are done. They're over it. They want to get out of here. They're like, yeah, I've circulated through too many times. The answer is not death. The answer is not suicide. I completely encourage people, stay alive, stay alive, stay alive. Make that your mantra, because stay alive is how you ascend. You avoid the membrane of death, and what you do is are able to find that wormhole, which is you are kind of magnetically drawn there the way that birds follow an inner magnetism on their vibration. I mean, on their migration, but I like that I said vibration instead of migration. You are following a particular frequency of vibration with your GPS God positioning system, guidance system that guides you back home, that tells you where's the door. It's like you don't see it with your eyes. You kind of sense it, like, where's that door? Where's that door? Where's that door? Oh, that's where it is. It's through that series of events. I go through this and this and this and this and this, and then I go through that frequency door and I am realigning with God and with my state change, new state of being, new state of purpose, redefining what death is. The time diagram is the abstract graphic representation of what your consciousness is experiencing when you ascend. So hold on, before I get to that, I'm going to make a bookmark in my notes. Let me get to this question over here while it is still relevant. From Trisha, thank you for being here. Thank you for all of your own work and all of your own efforts and contributions. Hi. She says, Aurora, is it a technology used to structure all these realities of our death and the sequence of events in different hell realms? This is really, really big stuff. And thank you for opening the door for me to be able to teach about it. So everything that I'm sharing, I always share from you from my idealized state, which of course I recorded 10 years ago, but also that's who I am and that's where I come from and that's what I embody. I'm like, this is the way everything is supposed to be. Like, this is divine perfection. Not that I'm SpongeBob with the frying pan faced silliness, but that I'm like, this is the divine perfection world, not the world of things that are imperfect. And I must acknowledge the imperfectness that has been created through the use of technology. Like I said, there are some consciousnesses that are smeared on the membrane of death that aren't the dead versions of you, but they've been involved in some grotesque time experiments that make them die, but kind of still be hanging around, like they're the unquiet dead. And so now we're talking about, Trish is asking, is there a technology that makes either the hell realm be sustained? Yes. That creates different reality structures there? Yes. That artificially brings people into that place? Yes. That artificially keeps people in that place? Yes. I know this is all very, very crappy stuff that I want to tell you, like, don't worry, but I can't, because that would be SpongeBob. That would be like, don't worry, everything is fine, a lobotomized idiot. No, although I do want to give most of my verbal energy and most of our attention, attenuous, feeding reality structures that we actually wish to experience, I must verbally acknowledge that there are different forms of technology that I would call soul disruption. Your soul, I define as the trajectory of you, like your trajectory, who you've been, whom you have been, and where you are going in your life incarnations and the sequence of events and experiences in your life. And that there is a way that has been artificially influencing people's lives. Like if you're supposed to be going in terms of consciousness over here, and then there's, I call it tractor beam of the soul, like tractor beam from Star Trek. That's like, we're going to make you fly over here instead, tractor beam of the soul. And that can be done in life, upon the moment of death, in the membrane of death, or even in incarnations in between worlds. So I'm going to share with you stuff about the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is actually more accurately represented the Egyptian Book of Coming Forth into Day, and also Bardo Todal, I'm not saying it correctly, but the Tibetan Book of the Dead, also, not accurately translated mostly. All of these things about how to navigate the afterlife realm. Please recognize that these are ancient texts or scrolls that come from a time before we were subjected to these levels of technological interference in the soul's journey. So I was saying this on my little Facebook intro. You need to be super badass in order to be able to navigate all of these technological distortions of consciousness, illusions, disruptions, poop and crapola, that's not supposed to be there, as one is on one's journey, which is a flight through time with clarity of consciousness going from incarnation to incarnation or lifetime to lifetime. So Trish says, and through dark magic and looking glass, they can manifest our life trajectory. So you are referring to dark magic is an apt term. Magic being this unnatural usage of energy, unnatural usage of creative energy to distort the events of reality. Like I wave my magic wand and poof, a rabbit appears. That's not part of reality. That's just ego. I want a rabbit to appear. I want to do it, like whatever from Willy Wonka. But Daddy, I want the golden goose. That you're not allowed to do that kind of stuff. Just be a self-centered kind of bratty person. That's considered a completely inappropriate thing to do in the time field where it is necessary to play music that integrates effectively with the entirety of creation. So responsible manifestation is really being a divine co-creator, different from the sense of ego-based, self-centered magic that is about power abuse largely. That's what Trish is referring to. And then also looking glass technology, looking glass being a semi-interdimensional, semi-extraterrestrial form of really low-class trinket, shiny object type of technology, not true deep spiritual technology, not on the level of flying rainbow lasagna, but like a magic mirror. If I look into my magic mirror, then my magical scrying glass, then I can see the future. So not accurate, not effective, hugely vulnerable. Like if you don't get an accurate view through your windshield and you're driving, like you can easily drive off a cliff. Like, hooray, the magic mirror told me to drive in this direction, driving off a cliff. And there's many, many cautionary tales about oracles gone horribly awry, as in the Delphic oracle. So just recognize that time perception used irresponsibly. So these are two levels, dark magic and looking glass. And also looking glass has been non-functional pretty much since I entered as flying rainbow lasagna due to a lot of my time rectification activities. So they've been rendered blinded or not even partially sighted through, like, you could consider looking glass to be kind of like goggles or something, like binoculars. Now they don't have their binoculars anymore, because guess what? You're supposed to see with your true Christ consciousness. Where's my little crystal? Grab it. You are supposed to see with your true pineal gland, your true crystalline Christ consciousness, not supposed to need artificial external accoutrements for that level of empowerment. Of course not. You're supposed to be able to fly through time, guided completely by Christ, in complete divine connection with God, knowing exactly what you're supposed to do at all moments. Okay, so wait, soul distortion technology. Sometimes people die, they're not supposed to die. Sometimes they are artificially influenced during their life trajectory within the time vortex to hit the membrane of death when they would not have. That's like if you're a golfer and like you're about to make one of those like very special little moves and someone sneezes in the audience or they shout out something and you jerk right at the moment that you're supposed to be like doing this special little thing and you mess up your game. They do that all the time. It's comments from the peanut gallery. And they don't just do it once while you're putting on the green. They do it all the time. Like you're trying to play music and you have like these horrible peanut gallerists that are saying like, all distractions or critics. So they are saboteurs, they are critics, they are judges. They judge during everything. Throw them all out the window. Tell them to shut the F up. They do not belong inside of you. And most importantly, do not allow them to influence your trajectory through time. We also face a ton of technological interference that comes from 5G, Bluetooth, synthetic telepathy, voice to skull, a lot of these things that are MK Ultra, mind control technology based consciousness control mechanisms beyond even control implants from something like the media, advertising, the music industry. We're talking about something that literally beams into people's minds, but artificially affects their pineal gland and says, think these thoughts, go in this direction. All of that is an artificial way of switching a person's trajectory and bringing them over to the membrane of death. All of it is hugely illegal, criminal on a grand scale, not acceptable in terms of time, law enforcement, cosmic law enforcement, time cop enforcement, totally not acceptable. And I would like to deputize every one of you in order to say, kick those crapolas out of your own mind. Do not allow them to influence your mind, your trajectory, your soul, and reclaim your soul and reclaim your sovereignty and reclaim your boundaries and revoke all contracts, real or implied, with them. It is very, very big work. It requires constant attention, like constant boundary upholdment in terms of not being affected or afflicted by them. And then different techniques for being able to clear them out, many different techniques. And vocal toning is one that works well. These implant removals and other things are also techniques that work well. Figure out what works for you and do the constant work, constant effort. Know that it won't always be this difficult, but that right now on the marathon, as I'm warning you, there's broken glass on the track. Don't run on that part, it will hurt you. So yes, we focus very, very much on maintaining our own true Christ connection, true God positioning system, telling you what are the notes to play in the song, where should you go in your life, what should you say, what should you do, how shall you behave, with whom shall you behave, and what other activities will you pursue, and thoughts and other things will you pursue. Hold on. I'll get to a couple more comments because I'm actually happy to be able to talk about this stuff, but then I also do want to speak in idealisms. Chloe, thank you for being here, says, the negative distortions of this realm are gathering forces, like the evil creatures being called to Mordor in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. Yes, even if we are here and not dead, this place is dark at the moment. That is exactly right. Very accurate assessment. So I will affirm to all of you, you are not dead. You are, however, in a transitory realm that very much mimics the realm of the Duat or the Bardo that I will speak about at length. This teaching will help to empower you to know how to transit this world because we are in a quantum indeterminate state. And that is what happens when the spiritual consciousness, soul aspect of self, the intangible self, separates from the physicality self. We are right now, that's that painting that I show you all the time. We're in that splitting apart and transformation into flying rainbow lasagna. It's on the wall over there. You see it on the wall. That one over there, Birth of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna. We're in that moment. We're in that moment of planetary ascension. We are changing state as a planet. Again, I've used impeccable language. I will refer to this, leaving the world of the purely third dimensional, objective, materialist interpretation of reality that only looks at the red level physical structure of reality and does not recognize anything that is in the intangible orange and up. So all of the oi-g-biv of the Roy-g-biv spectrum is ignored in the objective materialist world that we are coming out of. It is the old paradigm that literally has died. And we are now in the transitory state of occupying a new level, that is ascension, while avoiding the membrane of death. We're doing this as individuals and as a planet. One of the hallmarks of crossing the Bardo or crossing the Duat is levels of confusion. So not only do we have technological interference, things that were never faced by great masters of 2,000 or 5,000 years ago, we also face the regular gray miasma of what happens upon death or upon these transitory states. And I'll talk to you about like, why were these books, Book of Coming Forth in Today and the Bardo Todal, why were they written? Because basically all of those people in those cultures studied and studied and studied during their lives beyond the levels of objective materialism of Western industrialized culture of the 20th century or 21st century. They spent their whole lives preparing for their death journey. And then when they died, they're like, wait, I know what's happening. Kind of. What? Who am I? Where am I going? Like they become confused sometimes turned around, sometimes, I don't have a word for it. They go into levels of confusion. That is what is happening right now, just on a natural level, because you go into a formlessness state, a formlessness state of pregnancy, of potentiality. But then if you have to kind of get somewhere, I don't know if we can liken it to some kind of like a drug or hallucinatory experience, but befuddled might be a good word, that people kind of get like into these higher dimensional states and they're like, I'm thinking about all these things and everything's so profound. Like, who am I? Where am I? Am I supposed to be doing something? Like, they put the kettle on the stove and have totally forgotten about what they're doing. They're trying to make a cup of tea. Like, it is not a rational, linear state of mind. We are in that right now. We have been for several years as individuals on this planet and as the planetary structure herself. This is about Earth ascension. Hold on. Let me get that. I got to get the painting. If I don't get the painting, do I have it prepared here? Hold on a second. Hold on. Now I have to find it. Now I'm doing things. I don't want to break the flow, but I'm going to find that painting. That's it. It's right there. Here, let me just go to my desktop. Now you're looking at all of my stuff. That's what I'm looking at. Okay, this is the painting that I'm wiggling over that I wanted you to look at, and I'll refer to quite often. Birth of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, Earth's formerly toroidal energy field, the world of objective materialism, the world of what is known in common parlance right now as 3D or the third dimensional reality, even though, of course, it moves through time and therefore is both fourth dimensional and 5D plus, 5D being the pure waveform levels of being that we also inhabit and interact with. We've been there all the time. Ruby Slippers, Glinda, you've been there all the time, my dear. You just didn't know it. This painting exemplifies the transformative state change moment that we are in right now. Literally, we had some cosmic coronal mass ejections, CMEs, from our sun star. Just a couple of days ago, they're hitting Earth. They were hitting us the 22nd, which was yesterday, the 23rd. This is ongoing. These are ongoing portals. These are amazing experiences that we're going through. This is what I was writing about 10 years ago. We are experiencing it right now. So hold on a second, back to in that moment of transformation from toroid into Flying Rainbow Lasagna, that's going from this chakra shape into this higher dimensional time shape. There are these levels of confusion that are also concomitant with the levels of pure potential. Like in these moments, like press the big red button, the infinite improbability drive. Anything can happen. That's from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Press the big red button. In that moment, kapow, wah, anything can happen. People can get a little confused also. So I'm going to return, but I want you to know, I really validate what you're saying there, Chloe, that it feels like there's a gathering of evil creatures. It feels like these dark forces. It feels like there are things that are gathering to prevent this coming forth in today. One of the main teachings, as I'm sharing with you about the ancient Egyptian tradition. So, and I'll get into this, but briefly, the ancient Egyptian tradition looked at the solar disk as a sun bark, B-A-R-Q-U-E, a raft, a boat, a vessel, upon which gods and goddesses sail across the sky each day, being born at sunrise, middle age at noon, and then going into decline and death at the end of the day. And then having to transit what would be known as the underworld or the world of the afterlife as the sun's disk goes around the other side of the planet and is not visible. And the ancient myth from Egypt states that every time this cycle was to begin again, it was a battle for the sun bark of Ra, pure light, pure intelligence, to come. There's like a force of darkness. It was poetically represented as a dark serpent with its mouth open, ready to eat the sun, all right? That every single day there was a battle for the sun to rise, for it faced this ultimate darkness, and that it was defeated every time, interestingly enough, by the god that is known as Set. That is where we have the derivation Satan. Don't go too much into mythology and literalism because you go crazy, because there's a lot of distortions. Don't be literal, be figurative. This is poetry. Set has been completely distorted and changed in its presence and in what it is. So please do not overinterpret anything of what I'm saying. The meat and potatoes is the sense of before the coming forth into day is the moment of ultimate darkness, blackness, oblivion, that the sun and the true light must burst forth and conquer in order to be able to continue on its transit. And that also is represented in like the final moment of the crucifixion of Jesus, Yeshua, of Christ, that we know from the Christian tradition here. I'm going to talk about all of this in much more greater detail. And please understand or comprehend or look through the cultural lens of Judeo-Christianity as an outgrowth of the vestigial traces of ancient Egypt, which are the vestigial traces of ancient Atlantis, the antediluvian culture, all right? Blah, 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 blah. The moment of abandonment upon the cross, the moment of ultimate blackness, the moment of seeming total destruction, but then out of that moment comes the bursting forth into day. These are figurative, poetic guides for each one of us in the journey of consciousness, that these myths or stories, and you can think of myth as my truth, get it? A shortened version of the word my truth. These myths are templates for experience that one can embody and then apply to one's own journey, that you will really recognize that you're facing the ultimate darkness, you're facing the ultimate bleakness of oblivion, and that it is a battle or a struggle to be able to burst forth into complete expansion, divine reunion, God self-remembrance, and expansion into new reality. That is happening in your own individual life, that is happening on a planetary level, that is happening on a stellar galactic level. I'll get through the rest of the comments and then go back to my notes because it's deep stuff. I don't want to diverge too much. Trisha says, looking glass is a technology used to see the future. And then she's saying like jabbing people to death. Yes, exactly. The whole, I cannot speak about this too openly because I do put these broadcasts up on, this platform that does not appreciate certain topics that are, let's call them Voldemort, the unmentionables. We shall not speak about those unmentionables. We shall not mention them, but come to my Patreon where I have no censorship and speak openly about all of these unmentionables. Trisha says, metamorphosis, we're going to fly our bodies, the black sun. So the black sun is not the same. That's Nibiru. I'll talk about that at another time, which is a purely magnetic presence, not it is an infrared magnetic presence, not a radiant star, and is nonetheless affecting human consciousness here at this time. From Atlantis or paganism. So again, don't get stuck in what I was saying about Satanism or the original gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt, because as there were these archetypes of gods and goddesses from ancient Egypt, it then went through the cultural meatloaf maker, which is like the meat grinder, grinding up all of these perfect, pristine concepts and making meatloaf out of them, coming out the other end. So please do not take the cultural meatloaf literally, but do comprehend these gods and goddesses as archetypes of consciousness, exemplars of certain characteristics, and figurative, poetic expressions of aspects of self, of you on your own journey. Melissa says, you speak so eloquently, Aurora, very poetic and easy to understand. Thank you. Thank you so much for that encouragement. It means the world to me, as you know. The telepathic languages and art music language is what I'm most comfortable with. So I have worked very hard on the flapping of my moving mouth parts to be able to convey these concepts to you guys. So I'm going to refocus. We'll go through this again, and then that's all foreshadowing. Oh, thank you. Trish says, you're a symphony. I'm so honored by you guys, truly. Thank you, and much love, much love, much love received. Yeah, I'm going to go back to the notes, but everything that we've been talking about here is absolutely foreshadowing for the things that will come later in the notes. So in terms of, wait, let me talk about this before I move onward, because it's so deep. I got a lot of important stuff here. The time diagram is the abstract graphic representation of what your consciousness is experiencing when you ascend. Right now, just as an aside, in this moment, this weekend, each one of us as individuals and our planet is in the ascension process. It is a cosmic birth process. Yes, it has been ongoing for 20 years. And also the birth contractions have gotten closer and closer together. This is an asymptotic curve. This curve is not that far, closer, faster. Okay, and then we're born. So that we're at that point just before the totality moment the birth contractions are very, very close together. This weekend, right now, we are manifesting reality. I don't know if you can tell, my face just changed completely as I was saying that and recognizing that. Like, we are manifesting reality right now. Ascension has everything to do with your thoughts, your belief system, and the kind of programming your culture or religion has given to you. Cultivating the vehicle you will need for when you are no longer physical but are purely energetic, all right? In terms of death and cultural programming, I said this video is going to be hugely empowering for people from this time place, because highly industrialized secular culture, which is where you're coming out of, post-World War II, 20th or 21st century, industrialized meaning machine mind culture, secular meaning non-religious, not religious-based culture, does not place a value on things that are spiritual, and it is materialist. It pretty much is about commodification. Is a thing a thing? Is this thing a thing? It's a thing. Look, I can touch it. Like, I can bite it. Can I sell it? Can sell it for money. Here, it's worth 5 cents, $5. Commodify it. Not that much into the sense of what are other cultures from other time places. Some of them remain as vestigial traces in indigenous cultures, but the sense of wisdom, spirit, connection to nature, connection to divinity, divine presence, all these other things being valued beyond the materialist can, which is very, like reptilian survival. Can I buy it? Can I eat it? Can I sell it? Can I use it as a crowbar and leverage something with it? Like, can it be used as a tool? All right. This industrialized secular society has created a whole society of people who are not prepared for their death journey. This is it. And, we're in this ascension moment, and I truly focus on that. In recording this 10 years ago, I give huge recognition to many of the people listening to my videos will die or have already died. When you die, you need to have some preparation, like you've done the muscle building at the spiritual gym to be able to make that journey, to make that crossing, to make that passage. And I do like the sense of calling it when someone passes, because they are passing out of this realm and you have to cross the threshold or cross the intermediary membrane level to be able to get to where you want to go. Let's contrast this loud motorcycle outside. Here, I'll take a moment to drink. Contrasting this with ancient Egypt and Tibet. So good, I'm happy Salu is tuning in. Ancient Egypt is a time of the dynasties that would be considered like 26,000 years ago. There's even pre-dynastic Egypt. We're going into ancient times. I'm just gonna mute you, which are the, there we go, just muting. Vestigial traces of the antediluvian or pre-flood world known as Atlantis. Atlantis is where I come from. And the flood, it could be also considered the genetic degradation or fall or diminishment of consciousness from high galactic culture to mortality, and diminishment of Christ connection and diminishment of divine presence and divine God connection. So both ancient Egypt and Tibet are outgrowths of the ancient antediluvian society known as Atlantis. That the basics of how you can comprehend this, even though I say all the time it is a concurrent experience, are that time language fails at this point. The civilization known as Atlantis fell and fragmented. That's like saying your consciousness got degraded through a planetary trauma and was partitioned. There was amnesia. After that traumatic event, there is now cultural amnesia, and the partitioned remnants of self seeded new cultures in the new world that would be considered. Some of them went to Africa, the Middle East, and seeded the culture that became ancient pre-dynastic Egypt, then dynastic Egypt, and then the corruptions and cultural meatloaf of what we would now represent and understand as Egyptian culture, with the multiplicity of gods and goddesses. Same thing with the Hindu/Buddhist culture of India and what in the United States is called the Far East Asia. That's another place. Culture was seeded there. Same thing with Australia and the indigenous cultures and the Dreamtime. Same thing with South America and the Mayan culture, or Central Mesoamerica. All of these are vestigial traces of what was originally a big giant puzzle piece that all stuck together, that all of these different cultural remnants, each one contains a little bit of these ancient, not secrets, but mystery traditions. So chakras are openly spoken about and known about from the Hindu Buddhist tradition. And we'll talk about the Tibetan Buddhist and Book of the Dead, Bardo, and that other truthful teachings were held in the world of ancient Atlantis, other truthful teachings, Australia, other truthful teachings, Central Mesoamerica, South America. And I don't think that I'm well-versed enough in the world of Siberia, Norse, Northern culture. I know that there are traditions held in those levels too. Today, I focus on ancient Egypt and Tibet, mostly with my own soul connection in ancient Egypt. And that's me as Aurora, that I, as a waveform presence, influenced and was interacted with many of the experiencers of that time place. Let me drink. Cultural amnesia of what happened before the flood. This is just like having a trauma, a violent car accident or sexual assault or something like that, that causes an amnesia, and then the person cannot clearly remember the event or sometimes the events leading up to that event, and is starting over a new page, a partition of consciousness. The miasma of prehistory. So in this world, what is known as history is roughly the past 5,000 or 6,000 years. However, the miasma of human consciousness is everything that happened before consciousness fell. Like, many people do not directly remember what it was like to be an immortal, a god or goddess, what it was like to have no death, what it was like not to mash up mashed potatoes with your mouth crystals, but instead to drink nothing but pure sunlight. Trauma, partitioning of consciousness, amnesia. History, literally his story, the story of humanity or humanness since the flood event, which was also part of the degradation of human consciousness, a diminished connection to the divine and higher intelligence, a genetic degradation, and mental enslavement. That's highly traumatic stuff. It is not fun stuff, and everybody can understand why there is some amnesia or blocking out of what happened. Sometimes amnesia is a survival mechanism for survivors of profound trauma. Don't even think about the thing that happened, just pick yourself up and get going. And that is a lot of what happened in this world. The survivors of the antediluvian society, some went to Africa, Middle East, some to Egyptian, some went to Asia. We find remnants of the seed culture in both Tibet and the Hindu Buddhist culture. And South America, vestigial traces became the Mayan culture. A lot of the wisdom that was lost due to the genetic fall from grace or expulsion, these are in air quotes, please know, expulsion from paradise, was retained in traces in these various cultures. And they were retained over an enormous amount of time, many, many thousands of years, and held in trust for this moment now, when those of us alive now would put together all the puzzle pieces and be like, aha, it all makes sense. I see the total picture. I see the Snoopy sweater. Like, we've knitted the yarns together in the pattern that's supposed to be, it's Snoopy on top of his doghouse with the Christmas tree. It's a Snoopy sweater. That's genetic, is what I'm saying. Reknitted your genetic sweater. Now you can see what it actually looks like. It looks like a Snoopy Christmas sweater. I'm being very silly. I will get sillier. The focus of the entire culture in ancient Egypt was on the death journey. What does that mean? It means during the day, like life embodied day. People are like, oh, I gotta make my bread. I gotta make my beer. I gotta tend to my crops. I gotta go to the scribe and have them write some hieroglyphics out for me. I gotta go over here. I'm talking about performing daily mundane tasks. Just as right now, we perform our daily mundane tasks. And let's drive to the grocery store, let's buy my coffee and my toilet paper, doing all the things that keep your physical body presence alive. And the challenge was that in their time, everything that was experienced during the daily chorefulness of being alive was considered to be preparation for muscle building at the gym, the moment when you would leave your physical body and go on your spiritual journey that is known as death. Go on the death journey. Here in this time and place, nobody's ready. Everyone's like, driving to the store, go to buy my coffee, smash, there's the Mack truck that smashes you. And then they're like, what? I'm dead? What? I don't know. What happens in the afterlife? Where do I go? What do I do? Nobody knows. Nobody, what the F do I do? And nobody knows because there's not a cultural conditioning program or training program, positive conditioning, preparation for what to do in those moments. And the ancient Egyptian culture had a very, very clear training regimen, even for the most rudimentary levels of consciousness experiencers, because there were definitely a one-room schoolhouse, like beginners, people that did not have a very exalted view of what was happening in the world, and then those adepts and initiates who went through some of these training programs in what we would call mystery schools, where they taught you, this is what's going to happen when you die. And then those who were actual experts ready for flight. And when they would go into their death journey, they're like, I know exactly what's happening. I know exactly where I'm going and what I'm doing. And the ancient Egyptians also looked at daily alive time as the time when it was necessary to amass the resources that would support and guide you in your afterlife. And this, of course, goes back to an ancient pristine time, ancient Atlantis, before the obsession with mummification and body preservation became their complete focus. So what was originally a deep, profound spiritual truth of the illusory nature of embodiment, where of course we must get our bread or our potatoes or whatever sustains us physically in the world at this point, now that we are not light eaters. And also in the Egyptian culture, it became about amassing enough money to be able to have a tomb built, a house of the dead, a place where you would live after you no longer died. Like no one today does that, except some people do. They have like a cemetery plot or a place where they were a monument, a place where they would place their ashes of a crematorium. Very, very few people make that level of preparation in this time place. That was considered to be the goal. Just like people here have a college fund, like you're gonna have to save for college, make sure you can get your education. They're like, you're gonna have to save for your tomb. You know, you wanna make sure that you've got everything set up for when you die, because that would be really important to you. So yeah, having a house for the dead. And then also, so in earlier times, mummification was not so much of a focus, but it later became, like I said, a type of obsession or mania with the sense of eternal life being equated to the eternal preservation of the physical form through desiccation and mummification products. And they have definitely in ancient Egypt codified or formalized or made a very effective way of being able to preserve human forms, that we still have them in some museums even right now, that those beings, I would say, are not necessarily perforce going to have an eternal consciousness existence simply because their desiccated forms are now like in a wing of, you know, the Natural History Museum or something like that. Like they're in a museum preserved. That doesn't necessarily mean that their consciousnesses are eternal consciousness. So it became a false equation. Again, don't get too much caught up in the cultural meatloaf and the obsessions and distortions around the sense of eternal life and eternal consciousness. These are a lot of the fear-based things that people have done in terms of facing the death journey, even culturally informed cultures like Egypt. The Egyptian Book of the Dead. This is one of the things that goes back all the way to this antediluvian time and pre-dynastic Egypt. It is actually a mistranslation. Here in the Western Hemisphere, when they started to translate the hieroglyphs through their ethnocentric cultural filter, they called it the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Later on, it was more accurately translated as the Egyptian Book of Coming Forth into Day. Again, I did that little foreshadowing of what it is. Like if this is the sun's disk, and here I am down at the bottom of the screen, I'm below the horizon. Every day, the sun's disk must fight a battle to come up above the horizon and to be born again in life. And the Book of Coming Forth into Day is the handbook for the individual experiencer on the spiritual journey of transition and metamorphosis, going into death, going into the afterlife realm, going into the underworld, which is the behind the scenes, behind the planet, when you are in darkness, not in the presence of light, and then the struggle to burst forth and come forward and be born again or experience again. So Egyptian Book of the Dead, more accurately translated as the Book of Coming Forth into Day, that the mistranslation shows the ethnocentrism of our current culture, which originally mistranslated the hieroglyphics, and which also shows like some fear of death. The ancient Egyptians did not view death as an end at all, but as a transition into a new world. Big, 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 as we're talking about ascension and birth of the flying rainbow lasagna, transition into a new world. The book itself is a set of inscriptions or papyri, which is papyrus in its plural, scrolls. just like DNA scrolls. Get it, guys? Inscribed upon the walls of tombs. If you worked hard during your life and you saved for your college education, you would be able to afford a tomb. And upon the walls of that tomb, which would be your house of death, you would be able to eternally read and remember and access this crucial information, instruction manual for what to do after you die. Sometimes it was also entombed or buried with the mummified corpse of the people who died. Here now, the afterlife is not very much recognized or even considered. Really, truthfully, there are a lot of people who are atheists. There are a lot of people who are objective materialists. There are a lot of people who do not believe in God or in the existence of the afterlife. Many of them have what would be considered like a scientific or rationalist view, where they think that consciousness arises as a phenomenon from the circuits of your brain, of your little neurons jumping back and forth inside of your brain. And that when that stops, when that ends, when there's brain death, according to an EEG electroencephalogram in a hospital, that poof, you just poof away like a cloud of dust or whatever. You vaporize, you go away, and you just don't exist anymore. And I have so many things I want to say. The afterlife is largely a reverberative experience of what you believed or cultivated in life. So if you believe that you just don't exist, God doesn't exist, afterlife doesn't exist, that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy or experience for yourself. So many, many people believe themselves out of existence through not cultivating during their life a sense of continued existence. They believe themselves into extinction. I know that is quite outrageous. The afterlife also is often only spoken about or taught about in this time place through movies. The movies, we got like Beetlejuice with, the Handbook of the Dead, or What Dreams May Come, or even Donnie Darko. Many, many beautiful, profound movies that are artistic sharings, trying to break through the cultural programming of this time place to be able to tell people, this is cosmic truth, this is what's actually happening, this is what happens upon your death. Some way for people to be able to have guidance and comfort. This is what like lineages used to do. I want to say gurus, but people might misinterpret that. But loving teachers, this is what loving teachers used to do for their disciples, so that upon death, there would be some guide to know what's going on, if you will, kind of take you and be like, let me take you over here and tell you something, kid, you're dead and here's what's going on. Or even there's a good show called The Magicians that explores concepts of afterlife and underworld. That is a big part of it. That conversation that happens when a person is dead, it's like, come over here, sit down, have a cup of cocoa. We're gonna have to talk. Look, you're dead, and just deal with it. And then here's the rules. That is big, but again, that should be a deep, profound initiation, transmission of direct energies, and done under the loving guidance and care of a guru, teacher, master teacher is a better word, loving, spiritually conscious parent that most people here do not have. So very, very challenging in this Western industrialized secular culture that most of my viewers, experiencers, and participants are inhabitants of. Science does not believe in consciousness that exists externally or independent of the physical form, brain. Science looks at consciousness as a secondary byproduct of the activities of your physical jello, your fatty idea catcher, just having little zaps and things like that going on. And despite that, that is science's viewpoint, despite anecdotal reports of those with brain death or in coma having consciousness and a sense of awareness. So sometimes the EEG, the waveforms, are flatline on a person's brain. However, their consciousness is still having experiences. And then sometimes those returnees are able to return and say, yes, my brain was dead, but I was blah, blah, blahing. I was in another place. I was experiencing this person or this conversation or this experience. I said this is going to be a marathon. We're only 1 hour in, everyone. Drinking my sustenance. I need my electrolytes over here. Need to keep going, keep going. Good job, let's keep going. Okay, so all of this means that people of this time place are at a great disadvantage when they die, without the cultural programming or the instruction manual to guide them through the process. And a reminder of one of the main teachings of this course is in huge capital letters in my notes, you are a powerful co-creator of your reality. Emphasis. You are a powerful co-creator of your reality. You're in the process of learning how to hone or focus that ability. We do this when sitting in meditation, raising your energy, meaning the energy that is of the physicality, being raised to the level of pure cognition and insight, and then up to the levels of non-physicality, doing visualizations such as the spinning star tetrahedron of the Merkaba, visualizations such as the flying rainbow lasagna, visualizations that are projections of an inner reality that is accurate from the activities of the pineal gland, and sending energy back to the sun in the practice of sun gazing. These are all parts of creating your reality. Got it? So a lot of what I teach in this class, all of these different things that my hat is off to in recognition of everybody who comes here and puts forth beautiful efforts to be able to learn and embody these things, all empowerment teachings about how when you are in life, when you are circulating in the time vortex here in the area that is known as life, you are in the process of creating your reality, and you create it in conjunction with that vibratory force field that is God, that is creator. And you also create a thought seed that is the potential for what you create, putting that into the vibrating field of pure potential. So you're in a co-creative partnership. You then experience the unfolded reality around you, and then of course change and focus it and hone it, sculpt it until it's amenable to divine perfection. And worthwhile concept from ancient Egypt is that what you are doing in your physical body when you are alive biologically is preparation or groundwork or creating the basis for what's going to happen when you leave that body. Very, very big. That when I've talked about, just as a brief aside, because I have so much to get through, stories about ghosts or residual consciousnesses. A friend who lived in Kingston, New York, which was a historic place from the 1600s, sometimes saw in his side room a ghost of a woman from the Revolutionary era wearing a bonnet, simply picking up a casserole dish, turning, walking to the side of the room and kind of putting it down on a smaller table. And that was not like an evil, malevolent demon, nothing trying to suck a soul or anything like that, just a person's consciousness stuck in a time loop. Remnant of experience of a woman who clearly did that in her life. She picked up casserole dishes and put them on the table to the side. So this is very big. Where you go and what you will experience in death will be largely due to what you thought about or how you cultivated yourself in daily life. Again, most people in this culture right now are very focused on the survival mechanism of earning money, driving on the highway, going to work, doing all this different stuff, and not that much focused on self-cultivation activities, not that much, sitting in meditation on mountaintops. That means that in afterlife, the experience will be largely the end result of what one did in daily life. But of course, you can break that prototype. You can cultivate yourself in daily life, like even while you're driving on the highway, or you can basically make time to meditate, make time to be on a spiritual journey, even in a materialistic world. Cultivating yourself for your final moments was considered paramount in ancient Egypt. Preparing for the death journey was everything. Way more emphasis and if you had to, what is it called? Prioritizing for the death journey above merely surviving in the daily life. That means saving for your tomb and making sure that you're mummified properly and making sure that you've done these different consciousness creation preparation exercises to be able to have a good death. Here now, most people do not do that. Most people spend their time chasing a dollar or selling their time for dollars with very, very little concern about what they will actually do or experience upon the moment of death. That including gathering enough physical wealth to have a tomb and afford mummification of the corpse. Please note a huge distinction between the original teachings of everlasting life in ancient Egypt and the later perversions and commodifications that happened, obsessions developed with creating a perfect mummified form in order to achieve immortality. Some of the other corruptions included a corrupt priesthood or huge commodification in the sense of pay to play, who's got the bigger tomb, who can afford these special types of mummification, and various other things in terms of prioritizing, like who gets into heaven, he who has the gold makes the rules, all of those types of distortions applied in ancient Egypt, even as we can imagine them active in our own world, ego stuff. Preventing the decomposition of the physical form is not necessary in order to maintain eternal consciousness. That actually keeps you more stuck in the interim level, the membrane between worlds. So it's not desirable, and it's not the same as eternal life. This is very big because I'm going to just speak very briefly as an aside about clones and cloning. The time experiments from the past and ongoing time experiments that keep human consciousnesses smeared on the membrane of death but not resolved. That is one of those things. So the idea of keeping a mummy alive and that being able to have it be not decomposed and you still have some footprint in the physical realm that has not changed state, that has not gone from a solid to a liquid, to a gas, to a plasma, and then gone onward as pure energy. We've still got these mummies not decomposing away in their solidified form in museum glass cases at this moment. That does not necessarily mean that consciousness has eternal consciousness. It means it's still kind of stuck as an anchor in one level of reality, when you have to recognize that there is a divine system in the sense of your body doesn't last for forever. Even at a certain point, your skeleton decomposes and becomes part of something else, that there's a freedom and unlocking of the energy field that once held you together. That can be considered a very positive thing. So the obsession, mania with eternal life, endless mummification is similar to the sense of ongoing modern day cloning, where yes, this is a technology that is under-recognized, yet severely experienced by beings who are alive in this time place, and that it has everything to do with the beings that are, I don't even want to call them beings because they're actually non-beings, residual consciousnesses, putis, that actually came from another dimension or another time space that did their own horrible, gone awry time experiments. Just so that you understand or comprehend, when people of the here now get offered the opportunity, hey, you want to be cloned, like these elite people want to be cloned? Okay, all I have to do is get into this magic box, and then you're going to come out the other side in your clone body. What happens is their original body gets incinerated, but incinerated in like kind of a time event similar to Hiroshima or Nagasaki, like vaporization that creates them into like a last moment that is an unresolved quantum field, kind of like what happened with the Crab Nebulans and going into an indeterminate state when their star became a supernova, kapow, wah, and then everything in their civilization got instantaneously vaporized. They changed state so quickly that their consciousnesses got kind of stuck in that level. All of this is time stuckage. None of this is what you want at all. None of this is according to the divine purpose of time and how energy is actually supposed to flow. Like, you just have to understand that all this stuff that is resistance, that's like, but wait, I want to make it so that this is perfectly preserved. Like, preserve it in amber, make it stay for forever. Like, all of those things are antithetical to the true freedom of consciousness, which is energy flows. Energy flows, what I say at the beginning of this presentation, death is a flowing membrane. Energy flows, as opposed to death is a membrane that there's a lot of stuff stuck on that refuses to move. Like, it's the hard stuck on grease at the bottom of your stove or something like that. I'm like trying to like scrape it with a spatula. Poor analogy, but you understand. It's the hard stuck on residue of stuff that like you need some industrial, cleaner in order to be able to clean it off of there. Industrial solvent to be able to dissolve that stuff and get it off of there, which of course is love, which of course is pure truth, pure intelligence, pure divine light. Obsession with perfect mummification as being antithetical to true freedom, and in many ways keeping those consciousnesses stuck or anchored in a particular level of reality. Cloning as being similar. Incinerating or vaporizing the initial person's real embodied form that came out of their mother, and then doing soul hopping or soul tractor beam of the soul going to put him into a clone body, but that clone body is not the same as the original born body. It's a manufactured container that has limited longevity, but don't worry, when it starts to fail, just slide you on over into the next level of clone. All of that is being an aberration, not true eternal life. Just as a basic rule of thumb is that real eternal life does not involve anything technological, that you don't really need to have a magic box, a magic tool, a magic wand, a magic anything in order to achieve real eternal life or eternal coherence of consciousness. Okay, the Egyptian book of coming forth into day is the story of crossing the duat. Duat is spelled D-U-A-T. Let me draw some pictures for you. You know, it's a little bit hard for me to write with this, so I have to really concentrate. I did it. Crossing the duat. The duat equals the night sky. The daily solar journey of the sun's disk across the sky as a microcosmic and macrocosmic fractal reality of birth, middle age, and death. I already did that one for you. Here is the solar disk, the disk of the sun. Here it is below the horizon. The horizon is the edge of my screen. Here it is coming up from the bottom of the screen. This is sunrise. That is birth. Here it is at high noon. That's my face. It's, you know, in the middle of its life. Prime of our lives, prime of our lives. And then here it is going into the end of its life, the end of its season, the autumn of its life, and then sunset would be considered death, going into the afterlife. So every single day, the way that the ancient Egyptians viewed the world, every single day that they looked at was a birth, life, and death of the sun. Immense time fractal that we are living amidst. Every day, the ancient Egyptians perceived in this the cycle of life and the cycle of consciousness. The understanding was that when you died, your consciousness also had to make that journey across the sky, across the duat, across the Milky Way. All right. So the night sky also can be considered I don't want to say a blank space, crossing space. There's no sun in the nighttime, but there are stars, and it is necessary to be able to get across the duat, across the area of darkness, to be able to make it back to the solar disk. There's the Milky Way, you know, the bright, bright band of stars that usually can be seen in places that don't have light pollution. This is in reference to the ancient Mayan teachings about Xibalba, which is the dark spot in the center of the Milky Way, considered the womb of reality, the crossing place, the afterlife place, and also a place where tricksters are. The inhabitants of Xibalba were considered like the putis on the membrane of death, or these clone beings, time abusers that when you enter into their realm, they're like, oh, haha, we get to play with you, we get to mess with you, we're tricksters, we get to harm you, steal from you. I'm making this face that's like a psychopathic face. They're stuck there, you're transiting across there. They're like pickpockets and worse, trying to harm you and fool you and keep you stuck there. That's Xibalba. What the goal is in terms of the journey across the sky, across the duat, across the Milky Way, and when I get to Tibet, across the Bardo, the journey is to make it to the other side, which is a world of pure love. In my time diagram, that means that you either are going up the central core timeline and making it back here, which is a world of pure love, or if this is a membrane where I'm touching and you go beyond that membrane where my finger is wiggling now in that football shape, that is an area of pure love, except mostly one does not go across the membrane and then go into that area there. Mostly what happens is you circulate back around, keep on trying it again, because this is it's like a waterfall that you cannot get past for good reasons, because you need to be refined until you're ready to get into that world of pure love. The time when the sun is not visible because it is going around the other side of the earth is analogous to the journey across the territory of the afterlife, aka the underworld. As you exit your physical body, your consciousness goes to another realm and then re-enters the physical realm, but from another place. Got it? So this is between lifetimes and also within lifetimes. So when you go into death, the afterlife, of your individual person who you are right now, Chloe, Melissa, Martine, any one of you would then go through this death journey and then reassemble back at the beginning and try it all again. So please know that you have already died many, many times. Your lives are also concurrent. You're living multiple incarnations at one time. Please also understand time language is inadequate to be able to talk about this in terms of linearity, first, second, third, or present, past, future. And you inhabit multiple incarnations at a time. This is your soul journey. You're many, many, many people at one time. And so to think of it like, first I was Julius Caesar, then I was Van Gogh, then I was born as Aurora. Like that's the journey is not like that. You're actually all of these people at all of these times. And please comprehend that the afterlife journey happens within your own life, circulating through the membrane of death, and also between different defined individual incarnations. That's big. I know it's very hard for me to get that all into words. Cross the duat and transfer your consciousness as part of the journey of your soul. Your soul is the story of who you are, who you are as pure consciousness, going through this refinery of experiences, being Julius Caesar, and also being Van Gogh, and also being whoever you were, last lifetime, and then who you are now. Okay. Going across the duat is a world of pure mind. This is also analogous to our planetary ascension process that we are experiencing as a collective and as individuals right now. Going through a world of pure mind. I've said this many times. You're entering into a purely mind-created realm. So in the past, this is something that would be experienced upon the exiting or separation from the physical body, the world of matter, the world of somatic cellular presence. Then go into a world of pure mind, consciousness, both intellect and emotional energy and pure insight, that everything up from red, the oi-G-biv, that is all of that stuff. That is the world that you're entering into. Okay. Crossing the duat. Okay, so that is similar to the definition in this time place of what people would call the astral realm or the etheric plane. The astral world or etheric plane in this time place is what is described as a place where you also go when you are dreaming. And these ancient mystery schools also did teach people that lucid dreaming is what you do before you do your death, so that you begin to consciously, you begin to cultivate a coherent consciousness that sticks together like good waffles when you go to sleep and then awaken again. And then also when you exit your body, that you stick together as coherent consciousness. Coherent light waves stick together. That is what one is trying to cultivate while in the safety net of the physical body. And then entering into the world of pure thought and pure mentation would be entering into that, which is also the Australian Aboriginal sense of the definition of the dream time, dream world, dream time. So the duat is a world of pure mind. It is the astral or etheric world. Remember, that world can be populated by fabrications. I was joking in that technology talk that I did, that was a really deep conversation with Charlie B, all about the astral plane and who's there. We can make up a creature. We can say like a creature who's like 17 feet tall and purple and eats nothing but waffles and whose name is, George or something like that. And it's like, okay, like that guy exists now because we all collectively thought of him. So it is not solely populated by truthful expressions. That is the world that I come from with these mathematical divine perfections. That's the world that you want to move into. That's the world of pure love. So please do focus and comprehend that the world in the astral realm can be full of things that are not accurate. And that is also part of the confusion of entering into that realm, and why it is so powerful to have preparation in life and then also good guides or teachers that reverberate with you throughout your journey, because it is a solo journey. But please understand that when you learn from someone and it becomes deeply incorporated into your own embodiment, it sticks with you. So that when you are on your journey, you're like, wait, I remember my teacher told me about this. I'm prepared for this. It sticks with you as a profound, coherent teaching. So crossing the duat is a journey of consciousness. The duat is a place of pure mind, and the journey is a journey of consciousness. What you've been programmed with your whole life, your thoughts, your belief structure, and your mentality is your boat. Let's draw a boat. Hold on, because this really helps, I think, to visualize what is going on. I'll make it a red boat. So, the Egyptians had these kind of like rafts. That's it seen from the side. That's your boat. And it's made of planks. Like here's, kind of like wooden planks that are on the bottom of the boat. And then let's create a watery spot. Like here is, because all of this is based upon the sense of the Nile. Going across the Nile. And each one of these little planks of your boat is a thought structure. Like it's a thought, it's a belief, it's a way that things are stuck together. It's a polygon meaning a multi-sided vector shape that should have structural integrity. So the boat of what you are, your bark, B-A-R-Q-U-E, a barge, you could think of it. It's your thoughts, your belief structure, your mentality, especially as it relates to cosmology, the story of where life comes from and what upholds life, your sense of God or divinity or creatorship, and sense of the story of life and death. The sun bark of Ra, that is the solar disk. Make my little gesture again. The solar disk, sun bark of Ra, a giant barge upon which is Ra, this light consciousness that carries immortals across the sky each day, carrying a giant ship that is up in the sky, carrying immortals across. I know we've got the sun simulator, but I recorded this before the sun simulator, and we will stick with the divine idealism of that time, beautiful time. This is a world of pure light. This sun bark is a vehicle and a vessel of pure light. This is what's been in my teachings throughout this whole semester, the idea of the sun and the stars as portals for consciousness, portals for photons, photonic light beings, photons as feelers, nodes upon which are a divine neurology that one may travel, places that I've been through as myself, my Aurora collective, many times, going through these solar and stellar portals. It relates to the sun as a consciousness portal. Now, okay, wait. Sunbark of Ra carries immortals across the sky each day. Specifically, some of these immortals were named Set, Horus, Isis, Osiris, and also you and me, and Cheeky. That these are, when we become our immortal form, we join that band, that symphony. There's coherent light beings going across the sky each day. Does this sound familiar? It relates to the sun as a consciousness portal, photons as feelers being emitted, force field of time being emitted from the sun's mind. Because everybody who's on board the sun bark of Ra is playing music, thinking thoughts, performing acrobatic arabesques, and emanating time, timelines, possibilities, and probabilities that then sprinkle down upon you and me that make our lives. That is exactly what I talk about when I talk about the ascension process in the ancient antediluvian world. You make it to the mountaintop, and then you hover, and you are made out of light completely, and you are able to be part of this hovering society that still has a generative process that cares about the physicality realm and the people that still walk on the earth very much. So the stuff from ancient Egypt is allegory. It is non-literal. It is poetic. Please don't take it too literally. I relate it to my work, which is empirical, and you can take literally. All of this contains a lot of truth. It is not just poetic mythology, but please don't, imprint on it too much. The sun is consciousness. The sun and the solar wind are emanations of consciousness. We on Earth are intimately connected to the sun. Our individual daily consciousness is guided by and ruled by the sun. It is essential, not just in terms of growing crops, but in terms of regulating our mind and our life cycles. We are aligning ourselves with the pure consciousness that is the sun, which is pure light, pure intelligence, pure data, pure information. Weaving this into the ongoing explanation and description of planetary ascension means ascension is like making it through that tiny wormhole, the frequency door at the top of the time vortex diagram, bypassing the membrane of death so you can keep going. You got it? What the Egyptians did in terms of the instruction manual for post-life experience. This is called How to Make It Successfully Through the Afterlife, all right? Please turn to page 84 in your papyrus scroll. I'm joking. This is what they say, basically in quotes, in the Book of Coming Forth in Today. You will experience various layers of consciousness and you will be tested. All right, that's the first thing to get upon death, upon exiting the physical body. You will experience various different layers of consciousness and you will be tested. So you know what's happening. You don't get into confusion, not the sense of a grade school quiz. More the sense that that's something that is a test that has right or wrong answers. More in the sense of testing metal for strength. Got it? What is your tensile strength of your soul? You will be weighed. Got it? You will enter the hall of Mat. Let me write it for you. It's hard for me to write. Let's do it. Oh, I'll type it instead. That'll be so much easier. Good. So much easier. Mat, from the ancient Egyptian, meaning balance. You will enter the hall of Mat. It represents the balance of the cosmos. There you will find a giant scale, and the scale will weigh your heart. Here's your heart on one side. Your heart is your emotions, your inner sense, your conscience, your sense of right and wrong, basically, self-assessment. And on the other side is a feather, the idea of something extremely light, but also light. You get it? Like light, intelligence, data, information. If your heart is heavier than the feather, you could not make it all the way across the duat. It's like, oh, first you get weight. No, you're a bit too heavy. If that is truthful, then you go get recycled. But wait, first let me go into this. Analogy of a hot air balloon of consciousness that I talk about that wants to go higher, but there are lower vibrational thoughts and emotional residues that are acting like sandbags that keep a person weighed down. Emphasis in my notes. Death is the process of releasing that ballast so that your consciousness can rise higher. Death as a focuser of awareness. Death as a washing away, the solvent that gets off the, I call it the greasy residue, the burned on, baked on, whatever, crust on the bottom of the oven, that stuff that dripped down. That's stuff that happened to you or others in life. The solvent of death and love and eternal intelligence, releasing that emotional ballast so that your consciousness can rise higher, no longer identifying with your personal history or with your personal limits of that particular lifetime. This is getting beyond the ego story, the ego definition, even moving beyond trauma. No longer, you have multiple concurrent lifetimes. This is what I was just talking about. You have multiple concurrent lifetimes that you have experienced and will continue to experience. You are in a continuum. A continuum is an unbroken thing of stuff. That's not very accurate to say. That's why I'm laughing as those words are coming to me. Continuum, an unbroken thing of stuff. Like Aurora, that's not really going to stick with me when I'm in my afterlife and help me out very much. I'll try harder, guys, don't worry. You're in a continuum of consciousness, which is where there is not a partitioning. There is endless connection of seamless integration of consciousness. Weighing your heart against a feather is a test to see if you identify with your eternal core self, central core timeline, ascended master self, the inner you, or with the temporal things, the things that happened to you while you were submerged in time in this particular lifetime. This is the contrast between who you are across time. Who am I? I'm creative. I'd be creative as a rock shrimp. I'm creative as a human. I would be creative as a butterfly. I'm creative. I would make art or music or sing or do some kind of gestural performance, no matter what organism I am, no matter where I'm living. Basic definition characteristic of self. As opposed to this person, I wear this dress. I don't wear this dress in every lifetime. I have this hair. I don't have this hair in every lifetime. I don't have this name in every lifetime. I don't have this face in every lifetime. Certain characteristics are eternal. Certain characteristics are not eternal. So the heavy heart is over-identification with the sense of identity, ego, and personal self that is arising simply from the phenomenon of being submerged in time, not your true eternal self, which is who you are as an ascended master. If your heart was heavier than the feather, you would be thrown back to be recycled. That basically meant in that world, eaten by a monster, pooped out the other side, and then go back to try again, which is basically have another life. Not that positive. The basic constituent elements of yourself would be recycled into a new person and a new opportunity, and you get to try it again. That's very big. So kind of like taking the possibilities of who you are and what you did in that life, had your assessment, and then, okay, we're going to take all these characteristics and kind of meatloaf them together, mush them all back together into a new person in a new person's life, go back to the beginning, try again, but not necessarily the same person. This is like the sense of incarnating in a new, like I was John Smith and now I'm going to be, Sally, Purpleface, making up silly names. If your heart was light, however, you would be able to cross through all the different circumstances or obstacles involved in making it across the duat. So the first thing is the presence of weighing your heart. Can you even make it across the duat? If not, go get eaten and pooped out and try it again on another lifetime. If your heart is worthy, then you get to go through the obstacle course, which is kind of like, the track and field meet. Like you're going to be throwing the javelin, you're going to be jumping over obstacles, you're going to be jumping across a giant sand pit, or one of these, TV shows about like American Ninja or something like that. You're going to go through the obstacle course. When one enters the afterlife, there are some empirical things that will happen. That means the same for everyone. So some of the things that happen are quite subjective. They are unique to you as an individual, going through your own layers of consciousness, your own emotions, working through the difficulties and letting go of things. That's it. Some things are about your own particular life story, who you are, things that have happened to you, what brought you to that moment in the membrane of death, the equation of you. Life plus life, moment plus moment equals final version and membrane of death equals the equation of you. And that a lot of those are unique characteristics unique to you. Some of the things you will experience in your afterlife journey are universal. They will happen to everyone as part of the journey of your cosmic consciousness. That's the collective you. Some things happen to everyone. So now we're going to contrast that with the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Oh, so if I could just draw very quickly in terms of what the Egyptian Book of Coming Forth into Day is all about, kind of a sense of here, so that's your sun, that's your bark over there. Let's draw it like you're going to go through these different obstacles. Obstacle 1, obstacle 2, obstacle 3, obstacle 4, obstacle 5, obstacle 6, obstacle however many. And if you did it, if you get through all those things, you come out the other side, you come forth into day. You get to have a new embodiment experience. It can be completely redefined. It doesn't necessarily mean a return to physicality of the world that you came from. All right. Contrasting with the Tibetan Book of the Dead, Bardo Todal. I'll write it out for you so that we're just very accurate with what I'm trying to say here. I'm sure that my pronunciation is not that perfect because I do not speak Tibetan. Quote unquote Tibetan Book of the Dead. It is a set of scrolls, also similar to the papyri, ancient teachings, chants and prayers that are memorized during one's lifetime and that are also ritually pronounced over the dead body of those who have departed so that they may remember. All right. It has in common with the Egyptian scroll that both books are placed as reminders in either the tombs or rooms of death of those who have recently passed. So in ancient Egypt, you've spent your whole life preparing for your tomb. Here's your stone monument. Your dead body is going to be placed inside of there. There will be scrolls or some inscriptions on the walls that are all these things that you studied in life. In the Tibetan practice, there was not a tomb that was prepared for you during the time of your life, but as you are dead, your corpse would be laid out, and then the actual scroll books, like prayer books, would be placed near your corpse in the room, and loved ones and family members would read from those scrolls during your transitionary period, especially the couple of weeks immediately after a person's physical corporeal death. Reminders are needed because, as the books describe, when you leave your physical body, you might be confused. It can happen to the best of us. Who am I? Where am I? What the F is going on? I can't remember SHIT. I can't see anything. This place is gray and foggy. What is going on? That's my comedic rendition of what it's like for the newly dead. It can be disorienting, especially if you have not learned or been prepared about the afterlife and associated journey. Saying these prayers and reminders over the corpse, because even if you studied during your life, you can still lose your way. And also, love is really big. in my own experiences of going through afterlife and underworld journeys, the prayers, remembrances, and positive energy of those who are alive or in a love state, you really do feel it. You really do feel like someone out there loves me. Like sometimes it can be so gray or so confusing, or being in a tornado that you might not know what end is up, but you can feel and sense like somebody out there loves me. And that is very big. That is the sense of, if you have passed on, the loved ones that you leave behind, they still remember you, they still think about you, they still, whatever, they might hold some object that was yours. They might be like, I look at this art and I remember you, or I listen to your music, I remember you, or even like, this is your sweatshirt, I smell your sweatshirt, I remember you. So that's very, very big in sending love and positive energy to those whom have departed. I also tell you in my teachings, at a certain point, your time fields overlap, but at a certain point, they don't overlap anymore. So like my cat died, she is alive on a different timeline, but not on a timeline that overlaps with mine. So she went on her journey, but I would still send her a ton of love to the place where she is actually alive, to the place where she is actually in embodiment. So that's very big. You send love and appreciation to the remembrance of, the memory of, or the possibly still alive version of who they are in another time and place. The Tibetans describe the Bardo realm. It's as an in-between realm, as a place of wandering, a limbo, where your consciousness, not the fun type of Caribbean limbo, okay? Not that. You're not on a cruise ship seeing like, if you can do a backbend under a bamboo stick. No, a limbo as a hovering in between place, where your consciousness is intended to go across the Bardo plane and get to the other side and be reborn, or to make it to ascension where you do not have to be reborn, very similar to that Egyptian scroll, going through these various different tests or trials and then making it out the other side. So the Tibetan book describes seeing a series of lights, and that if you gravitate towards and enter those lights, you will then be incarnated into different possible life experiences, light experiences. It cautions travelers to avoid the first several lights that are offered. So that's literally, if you read this book, it will say like, you will see a type of light, it will look like this or that, don't go to the light. And then it'll say, move onward, and then you'll see a light that looks like this and this, don't go to the light. And it's pretty much trying to tell you that you should go as far as you can before you gravitate or kind of dive into a light that then will be the embodiment or the womb, the gestational period of your next life. This is about going through different layers of consciousness, considering what level of life lessons you need to learn as you select your next life experience. So really, there's no way to game the system. I want you to know, God is incredibly smart. And even if there's a handbook that says, don't go to the first light, like if you have something to learn at that level, you're going to go there because that's it. Your sandbags or your ballast, who you are and what you need to learn, you go there. So when I talk about all this stuff about soul, tractor beam of the soul portage, like taking a canoe out of the river and then putting it into a new river, none of that stuff fools God. It's stupid nonsense to the experiencer creator of that technology. Like, I'm going to fool God. You're not going to fool God. I did the frying pan face. Not going to fool God. God is supremely intelligent and knows everything that is going on. So you cannot game the system, but perhaps some guidance will help you to be able to recognize, and you're like, I transcended that lesson. I don't need to go down that road. I don't need to go down that road. But that's a lesson that I haven't transcended. And that is also a moment of radical self-honesty, just as in the Hall of Mat, one is weighing one's heart against a feather. Radical self-honesty. Like, did I really learn and master that lesson, or do I need to go back and try it again and really get it? It's another good Hollywood movie that I like a lot for this afterlife exploration of concepts. Defending Your Life. It's Meryl Streep with James L. Brooks. Very sweet, lighthearted romantic comedy that has a lot of spiritual truth in there about people that are in the in-between realm, Judgment City, deciding where they're going to go on their next lifetime pathways. And they only show a clips reel from their life, which is very challenging because you don't get the whole picture. There's like, the clips reel of this guy like messing up everything. And I did all this and this and this and this wrong. But then he's got the defender. That's his defending lawyer. That's like, yes, but look at this clip over here where he was brave and honest and courageous and made it through. So please understand that there should be some cosmic justice on that sense. We should be well represented, balance and truthfulness in terms of the assessment of all the things we've done in our life. Honest self-assessment also. Like, did I conquer my fear? Did I go in the right direction? Did I live with honor and courage to do the things that I really need to do? Did I prioritize my values? Did I live my truth? And then if you have lessons that you didn't learn or things that you didn't do, dive back in. Like, that light draws me in, and it's literally the light of conception of the next place. Okay. You will find where you need to be reincarnated, naturally going towards the life lessons and the circumstances or that level that your consciousness needs in order to be refined. The goal, this is emphasis in my notes, the goal being making it all the way across the Bardo and not having to be reincarnated again. So only at the very end of the process of your soul transformation and refinement, when you go through the Bardo process, you, without effort or lying, are simply able to be like, no, I go past that light, not for me. No, I've eaten all the donuts in the world. That's not the world for me. No, I don't have any appetite for that. That's not for me. No, that's really not for me. It transcended that one, and then onward out the other side. Again, there's no way to game the system. You simply have become. And then, yes, so you don't have to reincarnate again. Incarnate literally means live in meat. Get another physical body. At a certain point, you have refined your consciousness to the point where you do not need to take on another physical form. You have ascended to higher consciousness. Everything up above red. The physical, that's this, oiji biv. At a certain point, you have transcended physicality, incarnation, being in a meat body, and you live in your pure light body, which is oiji biv. You have leveled up in your octave of where you are. All this information I'm sharing today is training and preparation for your big debut. Death as your debutante ball, your coming out party. The day that you will die. Of course, you have the option of ascension, so please have that as an asterisk of all that I share. But you get to determine the quality of your death, of that experience and of that consciousness. You can die without dying. And now I'm going to talk a lot about what that is. Let me sneeze. Oh, blessings to me. Pardon me. We drink. We do not have to lose consciousness. We do not have to hop back onto the moving sidewalk and go all the way back to the beginning and try again. Membrane of death as being the moving sidewalk. We can simply go on infinitely on the timeline of divine alignment, the ascension pathway. Please note that this is an infinite journey of consciousness, but is not necessarily always in a form with one face, 2 arms, and 2 legs. As I said, if I lived as a flatworm planaria, I would be a creative flatworm, or whatever, a redwood tree, or a gaseous body, like what you would be if you lived on Jupiter. You could say Uranus. Be silly. Gases from Uranus. But no, you are free to inhabit a completely different type of body. So that's big. Your soul signature is who you are, whom you are, what you are, even when you're not necessarily having this hair or having this dress, but you are still that same person. I want you guys to know you will still be able to find me and connect with me and my energy signature, even if I don't have this face, all right? That's big. You are in a process of inner evolution of consciousness, but you are not wedded to or committed to or stuck with your human form. There are many humanoids in the galaxy or multiverse. Humanoids meaning they have 4 limbs and 1 head. They're like Star Trek aliens, like they might have blue faces or antennae or just be a little bit different. And then there are also wildly different types of creatures. There are other formats such as insectile, or as I mentioned, pure energy, digital or numeric consciousnesses. Yes, be aware of that as you're making your calculations in life. And all of these exist beyond the anthropomorphic or human form. So don't be too human-centered. And that is really having more of a galactic unity consciousness viewpoint of what it is to be an ascended master and to go into those levels of unity consciousness. You basically become a coherent light being of pure energy. Start to look like my paintings back here. Ascended masters as beings whom have let go of their human form and their human limitations and exist now at a higher form that does not have a lot of aspects of being human. Once you graduate or return to eating pure sunlight through your third eye, you no longer metabolize food in the same way as you used to. This is big. No more effluvia and excreta. That means no more pee-pees and poo-poos, but also no more dead skin cells, hair that falls off on your hairbrush, sweat stains on your silken gowns. I'm telling you, ladies, you can wear silken gowns and not have to worry about the dry cleaning bills. Nothing, no stinky feet odor. Everything about your body maintains perfect cleanliness. Again, no dental decay or bad breath. No boogers coming out of your nose. I know I'm mentioning all of these things that are like a third grader would laugh at, but that is what effluvia is. And those are all the things that come off of the mortal body, that come out of the mortal body. Living as gods and goddesses and immortals, we do not have those things coming off of us anymore. When you tap into pure sunlight, you have a very pure and clean state, a clean running machine with no metabolic byproducts. So beyond your boogies, boogers, and earwax, Q-tip sales will just go way down when everybody becomes an ascended master. Beyond all of that, I know I'm getting silly already, metabolic byproducts. That's really what's happening. Like when you treat your body like a steam engine, food goes in here, I digest it in here, puff, 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 steam comes out, and my arms and my legs move in kinetic energy. That is treating your body like a steam engine. And then there's all these metabolic byproducts, even beyond your poo-poos that come out. There's all these things in your body, cells that need to be cleaned up and cleaned out and migrated out of your body on a regular basis. None of that has to happen because you just have pure energy. Pure energy comes into pure energy and there are no metabolic byproducts. You also get access to a whole bunch more energy. So when you tap into pure sunlight, you get to access much more energy. It's cleaner and more efficient. It's an engine that is built to run perpetually. That's what having the light body is, coherent light body. And it looks like that, or it looks kind of like that, or it looks like that painting, Ascension 2012. Become a pure light being. How to get onto the central core timeline. The central core timeline. How to cultivate awareness to avoid getting recycled back on the membrane of death. It is all about cultivating your consciousness in life. Thank you for being in this class because all of you are already making supreme, wonderful efforts, I have to rearrange my chair, at cultivating yourselves in life. You think about these things on a daily basis for several hours. Talk to them, talk with me and others about them, and even think and write about them sometimes in conversations. That's profound, good stuff. That is helping to prepare you. During your day, at each moment, you're being presented with a banquet of thoughts, some of which are lower, negative, and some of which are loving, peaceful, nourishing thoughts. Cultivate the loving, peaceful, nourishing thoughts. You will then be aligning yourself with the central core timeline, especially during the time when you're eating or feeding your true self. All right, so when you're eating your whatever, avocado sandwich or chocolate chip cookies or whatever it is that you're very hungry and you're eating it. When you're eating it, taste those feelings, taste those nourishments and nutrients, absorb them into you, recognize the miracle that you are light, putting light into light, and that you are quantum entangling with those chocolate chip cookies and every molecule of what's in there. I know I'm making everybody really hungry right now by mentioning that too. We feed you my cookies of my mind. Because you are imprinting and saturating yourself with the physicality of what that food presence is. And then when you no longer have physicality or need for physicality, you have the memory, the recorded sensory memory of eating wonderful fresh baked chocolate chip cookies or whatever it is that you love so very much. Feed yourself as an ascended master in the future. Feed your coherent light body team or group of loving presences around you. Do not feed negative thought presences. Don't watch bad news on the TV while you're eating your dinner. Terrible stuff. Don't read the bad news newspaper. If you're going to look at something, look at, like, here's my orchid over here. I look at my beautiful orchid. Like, I'm going to sit and have my meal and talk to the orchid. I'm going to look at it. It's beautiful. The person gave it to me as a gift. Look at something beautiful while you're eating. Sit outside in the sunlight. Whatever. I also almost always have my DOG as my constant companion, like sitting down there, like seeing if she's going to get anything. Eat with a companion that you love. Could be a dog or a cat. Eat someplace beautiful. Eat in the sunlight. And it takes like 5 or 10 minutes to eat. It doesn't take that long. Focus on the feelings of actual food. Feed positive thought beings. And then also throughout your day, feed positive thought beings. That means I put my thought energy into loving, passionate, positive, high energy thoughts. not into judgment, criticism, sabotage, and everything that's about bringing other people down. Those are sandbags and ballast. I don't want to feed those things. So in the banquet of everything that's presented to me, I choose the loving, positive thoughts. Again, I recognize that we are in this time of mind control, where there is sometimes synthetic telepathy that comes inside of a person, stimulates you, puts thoughts into your mind that is not what you want, and maybe even drags your mind down into thought structures that are not desirable. No thank you is positive. Just if that happens, just say, no thank you. Like, I don't want to interact, and don't even go into a whole like, I'm fighting, because it's putting more energy into it. No thank you is absolutely like being a warrior of peace. You can also do things with like sending them to entropy, stillness, neutralization, vacuuming them up, you know, all these different types of visualizations. But mostly what you want to be able to do is spend as little time as possible attending to, with your tendril of attention, these negative thought forms. Spend as much time as possible focusing on the thought forms that lead you to life, to eternal life. Think the thoughts that bring you to eternal life. And part of that is being in religious and spiritual states of mind, higher cosmic consciousness thoughts, loving presence thoughts, and recognize the miracle of each moment. Let me talk about this. You will be aligning with your central core timeline, especially when you're eating, belief in programming, believing in a higher consciousness, believing in infinite consciousness, believing in God, divinity, an abstract higher consciousness, a non-human entity that is involved in perceiving and directing events and experiences in the other levels of reality, believing in spirit, the afterlife, in consciousness that can exist beyond the physical body, not merely as a phenomenon of your brain and your neurology. Focusing on those things, feeding energy into those things, creates that as a reverberative reality. Those are the planks in your boat, in your raft, in your bark. As you are sailing off across the Nile, and you have to get across the Duat and make it to the sun bark. And then they're like, come on, like, get on board, get on board. We are creators and we are emanators of reality. You project reality outward from the pineal gland, the third eye. There's also a lot of things in the ancient Egyptian headdresses with the serpent coming out of here. So again, don't get stuck in the form, but just recognize the recognition there. When one leaves the physical form and is no longer corporeal, one is still an emanator of thought realities. So you're emanating beep, 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 beep while you're alive. And you're also emanating beep, 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 beep when you're dead. You can think of it almost as the momentum. Like you have a type of vector and momentum, energy that is carrying you forward through life. And even when you die or when you ascend, you have gone across the threshold, but your momentum continues to carry you. I ring a bell, ding, it keeps on reverberating, echoing, going along. So my friend that had that ghost from historic Kingston, that was an echo, a reverberation, picking up the casserole, putting it on the table. That's an old bell that rang a long time ago, but it's still reverberating. Coherence and having longevity means that the aspects of who and what you are stick together and have a longevity and continue onward, even while your physical presence does not continue onward, either through death or ascension. When one leaves the physical form and is no longer corporeal, one is still an emanator of thought realities, or emanatrix. We'll be gender neutral on all of this. Except one is in a world that is much more malleable and influenced than the physical world of dense matter. It is like a dream world. So everything is more influenced by your mind. You are in a realm of living, vibrating energy that you could imagine as a grid of waves. So here's waves, and the waves interweave themselves kind of like a grid or a tapestry. And you are a seed of consciousness that is thrown into that vibrating field of pure potential. Whatever is in that seed is suddenly magnified and reverberated outward. That seed is your thought seed. It's like an ovum or an egg, and it goes into the vibrating field that then nourishes and gestates it and makes it blossom and bloom forth as an experienced reality. Literally, you create your next reality, you create your next experience. A brief note, Acknowledgement of that which has been grandfathered in. This is not in my original teaching, but I have to speak to it from my recent experiences. Some things have been grandfathered in. Some things come from you and go into the thought seed. That's all the stuff that I think about and that I want to learn and explore about self. Then there's other stuff that's been quote unquote grandfathered in. It comes from previous administrations or previous regimes, residues of the previous creators of reality, which you might have to rectify even if you did not incept or emit them. That is very much me here as Aurora. So not only have I come into a human form that had different emotional residues, dirty socks that I had to clean up and launder, cleaning up the body, cleaning up the energy field, cleaning up the chakras and the skeletal muscles and tendons and healing traumas and things like that. And also stuff that was in her life, in her ancestors, in her family lineage. I'm cleaning all of that stuff up. I just got, this is me when I got to work in 2001, work being like, you know, coming into this body and being Aurora. Like, okay, it's gonna be my first day on the job and I'm like bright-eyed and so excited. And I'm like, okay, I'm here to do my cosmic job. And I'm like, that's not my job. That's not my job. That's all my job. That's all my job. That becomes my job because I'm like, I just got here. Let's see what I have to do. Oh, I got to clean up that mess. Oh, there's a giant mess over there. I'm going to have to clean that up. That extension cord is not properly coiled. I'm going to have to clean that up. That is a hole in the wall that's going to have to get plaster and spackle on it. I'm going to have to clean that up. Lots and lots of things. So please recognize that. In a pristine world, you create a thought form from your head, a seed, you in divine partnership with God, put that seed into the vibrating field. It then emanates outward into the amazing expanded experience of reality. And you are then in the reality that is of your creation. But let's say like, I didn't create money, not my job, but it is your job because you came into a world that used money as a presence. And then there must be a rectification. Okay, it's a thought form. It's something that things and people are using. Same thing with death. Death as a thing. Death as a thing. And you got to be like, what am I going to do about this thing that has been here for a long time? You have a rectification event. So I write in my notes, you might have to rectify even if you did not incept or emit those events or objects or circumstances. And that is also part of what radical self-responsibility is. It is taking cosmic responsibility in the sense of unity consciousness. You're like, okay, I didn't personally make that mess, but I'm here now. I'm in charge. I take responsibility because in the larger cosmic sense, self-state made that mess, and I am now in the position to clean it up and rectify it. So that is very big. Your personal healing, your familial healing, your healing of this planet, the healing of the challenges of the social state of this planet. Like when I talk about money, gender imbalances, ethnocentrism, diaspora, genocide. You're like, I didn't make that genocide. That's right. You did not make that genocide, but you are going to be part of the cleanup crew, cleaning up from the reverberative after effects of that genocide. And that is what healing is. These are all waves of consciousness that you send out. Then go get another physical body and go meet and interact with all of these waves that you have sent out for yourself. So here's the way of saying it. I make my thought seed. I have wonderful cosmic love making with God, the generative principle. These thought waves spread outward from my co-creative experience with God's self. And then I walk around and I meet those things that I sent outward from my interactivity with God's self. And some of those things I generated. That's me. I made that thing happen. Some of the stuff I didn't make generate. I'm like, that's a pile of dirty socks from somebody else's stinky feet, but I'm going to clean it up anyway. And it is a big distinction to recognize the two things that are going on here. So, because I really want that to be clear in terms of shadow work, pardon me, taking personal responsibility and recognizing what is yours to clean up, what is not yours to clean up. Like you can pretty much claim cleaning up everything, because if I live in a house, I want the whole place to be clean. I'm not going to be like, that was from like the guy that lived here 5 years ago, but I'm not going to clean that up. Like, of course you're going to clean it up because you live in the house now. But, and in terms of what you have to learn from, you can be like, I do not have to learn from that. That is not me, but I'm cleaning it up anyway, because I've done a lot of that as a Aurora, where I'm like, you know something, technically I'm way beyond that lesson. I know what that is. I did not create that. I do not want to have to, claim ownership of that. And also I'm super responsible and I'm going to clean that up because it's part of planetary and galactic levels of house cleaning. So please look at your own life circumstances in that way. Make a distinction between the things, life events that you are here to learn. Beautiful creative expressions also. You're like, I made that thing. Like, I'm proud of my paintings. I made those beautiful things happen. I made those beautiful events. I made those beautiful relationships. I made those beautiful possibilities. And then this other stuff, like, I didn't make that stuff. It's not mine to claim ownership of, although I will clean up the dog crap because I don't want to walk in piles of dog crap in my neighborhood. You know, it's kind of that attitude. At a certain point, you do not have to reincarnate and get another physical body, because you do not have to go all the way back down to the beginning and circulate back up through the time vortex again. You get to exit. Got it? You exit through that wormhole or through that frequency door. What happens next? You then find yourself in an even higher reality. Let me draw it for you. Okay, so the black time vortex over here is one level of reality. When you exit the wormhole, where I'm coloring over here, what happens? You then find yourself in the next time vortex, the next level of reality. And there is an ascension pathway. Oh, I drew that one very, very poorly. Please forgive me. There we go. You start off over here. And you go upward and it doesn't work, and you go around and around and around and around and around and around and around, and around until finally you start up over here, and then you make it up there and you have the next level of refinement. And then at that level of refinement, guess what happens, everyone? You find yourself, these get tinier and tinier. You find yourself, I make a tiny voice at the side of this, and then you go all the way to it, and you go all the way up, and you go all the way up, and all the way up. Okay, and I'm very silly, getting very silly, but in my more serious context here, the process of refinement on this ascension pathway is a continual journey of refinement, not an imprisonment. Like, I never actually make it to infinity. The journey is infinite. You are at infinity in the ascension pathway, which is a continual sense of refinement and return to God's self. You do achieve God's self. Please don't think of it as like, I keep on taking like half a step closer and closer and closer to the wall, but I never actually reach the wall. You are on the journey. You are on the pathway. You are an eternal being, becoming the eternal being. You get there. I want you to know, not in prison, and you actually do get there. You find yourself in an even higher reality, and you begin the refinement process on an even higher level until you get out of that realm. The octave up above humanness is known as higher consciousness. So out of that black time vortex where I drew the green time vortex, you're exiting humanness and getting into higher consciousness. And then you circulate and live through higher consciousness. Then you get into the next level of consciousness. At a certain point, even that process of refinement ends and you continue even higher. This continues until God. You do get there. I want you to know you do get there. I'm about to start on part number 2. This is a marathon. I told you, I warned you, I'm going further, but first I want to go back and read comments that are relevant to the first part that I was just talking about. Okay, back to Trisha says, living in the center should be the preparation for death. That's exactly right. And then what happens is you don't die. You ascend. You don't have to hit the membrane of death. You ascend. But very, very good point. Melissa says, everyone ascends. Exclamation point. I agree. She says, everything gets organized to energy or entropy. Correct. We'll get into that in part 2. So does this look like all of us ascending together, even those whom are not even aware of the FRL. I'm sorry, I make squidgy squirrely faces because my eyes don't always work. Even those who are not aware of the FRL will ascend, and we all have this experience together, but slightly differently. This takes time to ascend, but we all graduate together. Big event. I will get to this. Hold on a moment. Okay. The words are very tiny. It's hard for me to see sometimes. Here's the time vortex, and here's your central core timeline. So the pointy part is where you God back with God. And every other person is also on their journey of realignment of Godding back with God. And every single one of those timelines is a vector that ends up looking like a dandelion seed head. It has a central core epicenter with many, many, many radiating timelines that come off of it. So every single one of the beings that are here has an ascended master form of what it is. Fish, humans, dogs, trees, butterflies, every single one has an ascended form. Every single one is on the journey of figuring out what is the exact personal equation to embody that ascended form. In the sense of time outside of time, it all happens in sync, synchronistically at the same time. In the sense of linear embodied time, when you are in the, like a fish swimming in the river of time, it does not all happen at the same time. So you can be like, that guy ascended last Tuesday, and now that guy's gonna ascend in 5 months. Their click in the cosmic time to get to the center of that dandelion form happens at the same moment in cosmic time. In linear time, that guy might have ascended 5,000 years ago. This guy's going to ascend next Tuesday. So there is not a total overlap in linear time language. On our planet right now, we are experiencing ongoing ascension event, a planetary ascension. And what that means is that because the Earth body herself is switching over from a solidified objective materialist format into a less dense, less matter-based form of existence. Anything and anyone that's here that wants to be a part of this version of Earth and beyond has to make that shift. So in our ongoing experience, when I show you that painting of Earth splitting apart, you have to shift if you do not want to die, because the planet herself is shifting and going in these new directions. That is really what is happening, that it's necessary to have everybody who's here either go into this new version of reality or kaput. You're on a dead end. That there's that, and that we're on these, I hope my words are working properly, branching timelines where everyone who's in this version of reality will make it to that experience of ascension. And also, like what I experienced in the antediluvian world, ascension is such a personal process that like one guy is ready right now, one guy will be ready next Tuesday, one guy will be ready, in 5 years, that there's room for that there's room for that sense of taking as much time as you need to process and digest. Just like when I talk about the death journey, some aspects are empirical, mathematical. It happens the same for everyone. Some things are subjective. So not everybody meets their dead grandma. Not everybody meets Jesus Christ. Not everybody goes through this and that and heals from their childhood trauma, or that they shot somebody in a war, or that they ran over somebody on their bicycle, manslaughter with their car. Not everybody has the same lessons to learn. And similarly, like you can't be on the same time clock. Be like, sorry, the ascension bus is leaving now. You must process all of your emotional drama now. Get on the bus and go. Otherwise, what's going to happen? It's not like that. So there are opportunities for people to process at different rates. And also, please comprehend that when you process your SHIT, you're like, I'm ready to rise higher. I did all my dirty sock laundry. I don't have any more dirty socks. You're ready to rise higher, and that nothing else can hold you back. That's very, very big, because I don't want anyone to be like, yo, process your dirty socks now because I need to get out of here. Like, I'm done with this, crapola, which, I'm being very lighthearted, but I can understand the frustration of someone that's like, I've been here for 12 billion lifetimes. Can you please process crapola so we can all go? Ascension bus doesn't leave at the same time for everyone. Please be at peace, or in the sense of ultimate faith, support, and trustfulness of the divine loving presence of the cosmos, that you will receive exactly what you need to receive. What if you work with a bunch of people that aren't ascending or not going fast enough? You're like, I go to work every day and I'm surrounded by these people and none of them are ascending as fast as me. Does it mean it's going to hold you back? No. Or your spouse, or your dog, or your neighbors upstairs, or any of those things like that. People are on their individual journey, and that is what the true love coherence vibration is about, allowing and acceptance. You're like, okay, do your thing, do your thing, I have attitude, do your thing, do your thing. I'm doing my thing. And that's it. That is the ultimate freedom of your own self-cultivation and your own pathway through time. Let people do their thing. And I'm very much at that stage in my journey Even as I am always trying to uplift and encourage people to go in positive directions, I feel that I'm able to influence some people, and some people, do your thing. And I wish you, and I often say this as a phrase in my mind, like I say no thank you a lot. And I also say, I wish you well on your journey. I wish you well. And it's a very neutral, non-anger way of just being able to say to someone, like, you're on a different timeline, branching on a different timeline, go in peace. I wish you well, run your journey, run your marathon. I'm running my marathon over here. Also, sometimes, just as an aside, because I couldn't write this 10 years ago, but in my experiences over the past several weeks, there are some moments when I feel these huge influxes of solar energy where I feel like it is now time for me to disengage from everyone else, disengage from reality, go completely into my own journey and into my own self state. Sometimes I listen to music, sometimes I just paint or do artwork or meditate, and I disengage from everyone else. And I simply say, I wish you well on your journey. Like, we have journeyed together. I'm responsible for myself. You're responsible for yourselves. At this moment, I'm doing me, you do you, I do me. And then usually when I make it through the portal on the other side, it's like, oh, look at that, I've emerged into a new reality. Okay, now it's time to respond to those phone calls, respond to those emails, connect with people, talk with people, think about other people, share energy with other people. It's not always that time. So please respect your own journey. Sometimes it is time to be in your own reality bubble where you are simply responsible for self-state. And then sometimes you emerge into a new world and you're like, now I care. I've always cared about people, but now it is appropriate for me to reconnect with others. This is baby sea turtle stuff. Sometimes you're like, I just hatched from my egg, make it across the sand, make it to the ocean, make it to the ocean. It's not always time to stop and talk to your neighbor because there's seagulls that are trying to pick you off or whatever. Like, it's not always time to be like, hey, you're a baby sea turtle, I'm a baby sea turtle. Like, look at this sand, look at this stuff. Like, we just hatched, this is amazing. Like, it's not always time to have a big, long conversation like that. Sometimes it is just time to be extremely focused and say, I've just emerged from my baby sea turtle egg, and my goal is make it across the ocean, make it across the sand to the ocean of consciousness, which is Christ consciousness. Sometimes that is just the focus. And again, this is all part of the balance, like looking at things that you've emitted versus things that are grandfathered in. It's a huge level of discernment, responsibility to the self, to the individual, in contrast with responsibility to the whole, to the entirety. These are some of the lessons that we learn from the stages of walking on the planet like this. Melissa goes on to say, I would like to use this new mind-created realm to create the no fluoride or other toxins added into my water supply, which is actually just a hole in the wall. Yes, exactly. I would also very much endorse that because I live in a fluoridated place too. So water comes out of a hole in the wall, and we can imagine and envision that the water comes out as the most pure, energized, beautiful, like water from Mount Shasta. My face totally changes when I talk about this reality. Most beautiful, pristine waters. And same thing with being able to bathe in those beautiful, clean, clear waters. Very, very positive co-creating with you there, Melissa. Lucy says, can we make it through the central line if our heart is heavier than a feather as we judge our 3D experience? And then she says, I just answered it. So I'm so happy I telepathically connected with you. And Lucy had to have that. She says, love to all. I have to tend to 3D responsibilities. Catch up on the replay. Have a blessed day. Thank you for being here, Lucy. And thank you for catching the replay. I know you always have a very busy life of working and caretakership. So I appreciate any amount of time that you're able to hop in here. Chloe says, so if you do not hold any belief at all, you are automatically recycled. You know, if you do not hold any belief at all, like people who are, I would say, strictly atheistic, not even agnostic, but those who say, I disbelieve in God, I disbelieve in spirit, I disbelieve in presence, I only believe in like cells that I can see under a microscope or blood and guts that I can see coming out of people's bodies. I would say that person goes into a state of non-existence, like they believe themselves into oblivion. That is a form of self-destruction, like a cell that is in apoptosis in the body. In your physical body, if you have a cell that goes into states of unhealthiness, which can include mutations like cancer, the cell learns to press its own inner self-destruction method, which is called apoptosis, which it tells itself it is time to dismantle me now and no longer to exist. And I think that if you really go into levels of disbelieving in God, because God is self, that if you really don't believe in yourself, that you cease to exist, or that version of yourself ceases to exist. And then there would be inevitable versions of self that do find and remember and protect that spark of being that is God. God is a living presence. And I call myself a protector of God because I see God as something that is alive, that needs to be nourished and protected and cared for, that we're in a partnership with. Like I care for God and God cares for me. And same thing with time. That I feel like I cannot simply take for granted these things as like, oh, they're big, they're giant, they're inevitable, they're going to keep going on whether or not I'm feeling, no, I actually feel very protective of them and like I want to nourish them and like they are parts of me that I identify with. So I think that that is a crucial mind state to achieve in order to have presence and longevity. That if I had cells of my body that were like, I don't even believe in Aurora. Yeah, that's my attitude there. I don't even believe in the existence of Aurora, that I'm just me and I just swim around in a bunch of cytoplasm and there's nothing else beyond my cell membranes. If that would be a cell, that would be going towards apoptosis because it would do all this stuff that is not part of the holistic health of the entirety. And that it's really essential to be part of the holistic entirety of the cosmos. So I would say some parts of that person would go into extinction. A version of that person's self would find, remember, and reclaim self as God's self state and would be an ascended master. Really good question. Melissa says, I'm like the lady at the store handing out entropy stickers to all the passersby, but of unwanted thoughts, I love it. That is so great. Yes. So I'm going to get into this with the flying rainbow lasagna and the death journey, but what Melissa is beautifully referring to is the sense of energy and entropy. That this source that is here, that is the central convergence point, is also the destination. It's where we came from, it's where we're heading to, but it does not have the same qualities. So this is big, and I'm going to go into a whole rest of the teaching. The day continues. Energy versus entropy. Entropy being a state of non-being. That is the catch-all place for stuff that should not exist. And stuff that should not exist is stuff that maybe should never have existed, but somehow got into a semi-existent form, or stuff that is purely erroneous, that we are exploring its levels of erroneousness until at a certain point you're like, that's totally erroneous. It does not deserve to be in existence at all. Goes to entropy. So this is what to do. What to do, everyone, with the stuff that is not supposed to exist. And that's why I stopped calling these things beings, but I start calling them non-beings. We're talking about consciousness residues and emotional residues. I will get more into that in a moment. Trisha says, genius to guide us through sound. Thank you very much. And Martine's going to sleep because it's late. Thank you for being here for as long as you could. He's over in Europe. So other people will catch this on the recording. This part 2 is called The Flying Rainbow Lasagna and the Death Journey. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna as a portal through which I journeyed, I, Aurora, coming from an otherworldly state or higher dimensional state into physicality presence of Earth Woman literally 20 years ago. The FRL also as a topology meaning the study of surfaces, solution as to how to die without dying. Contrasting ascension with death. Other cultures in other times and places helped cultivate people to have an empowered death experience. A death that resulted in manifestation of a better next stage of consciousness. That's what I was just talking about. Manifesting and cultivating innate energy, sending it as a feedback loop to the sun, equals the co-creative partnership in reality creation. The intercommunication of the two surfaces in the lasagna shape. Here's the outside surface. In this sculpture, I define outside as any surface that faces the room that we're in. And the inside surface, and I define the surface in this sculpture as any surface that faces itself in the sculpture. So inside, oops, over here, and then this faces outside. The outside surface begins to communicate with the inside surface. This is because of the stretchy balloon of time. So human science right now envisions time as beginning from a big bang, a super, super, super dense level of matter and energy that expands outward and creates a time bubble. We are living on the surface of the stretchy balloon of time, with everything that's inside of the bubble being the past. And science does not really formally recognize the potentials for the future beyond the present moment now. In this model, the stretchy balloon of time is not cut. If we cut it, the balloon would die or burst. So if there's a little ant on the inside of that balloon and a little ant on the outside of that balloon, they're always going to be in separate realities. They can only communicate if we create a place where they can meet. The stretchy balloon of time is placed in a context, and the context is known as hyperspace. It is the room that contains the room. Okay, so what initially we're talking about is this shape is the stretchy balloon of time. What, Aurora? That's 4 vortexes. It's not a balloon. Yes, it is a balloon. We start off with the big, giant, stretchy sphere, and then God's fingers poke it this way, poke it this way, poke it this way, poke it this way, and that creates this 4 vortex shape, but still with a very clear distinction between the outside surface and the inside surface. We do not cut the sphere. What we do is place it in a higher dimensional context. So science does not formally recognize the future or anything outside of the membrane that is the moment now. Put this in a room. Instead of just a vacuum nothingness around it, put it in a room. The room that contains the room. What is the room that contains time? That is called hyperspace, higher dimensional space. And hyperspace is the context within which you can move this shape, turning it into this shape. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And as it does that, it creates this shape. The time sphere is moved up and down relative to the new context. So we take the time sphere, we put it in a room, the room that contains the room, the rooms of third dimensional time reality that we're in. We then take the time sphere and move it up and down, up and down, up and down relative to its context. Oscillating movement leads to the blending of the two surfaces, the up and the down. And let me also see, hold on one moment. I'm going to see if I can come up with, I'm going to squint and scroll, everyone. Squinting and scrolling, because this is a very important little drawing that I did. Yeah, got it right here. Okay, hold on a minute. Let me do share screen. Let me do this thing. Let me do this thing here. I'll go into this. Simple drawing that is really quite profound. This is the cross section at the bottom of that time vortex or chakra shape. This is the cross section at the top. So you have an overlapping of the two positions. And as it is at the bottom position, one of the flanges or layers of the lasagna is made. And then as it moves into its higher dimensional superposition in the hyperspace context, it then creates this next lasagna shape. And you can see here's the singularity dot at the top. Here's the singularity dot at the bottom. That singularity is constantly oscillating between these two places. That creates a blending of the outer reality of manifested hard-edged matter. Your outer reality, this surface, is everything that's out here. I have a hard-edged matter body. This is a sculpture. There's a wall behind me. There's all of you and all this stuff that happens out here. That's the outer stuff in air quotes. And the inner reality. The inner reality is a place of cognition, consciousness, emotion, pure abstract energy. Blending these two things together, outside, inside, is the healing of duality. So also, just as a brief aside, it's not in my notes, but when you first came here as a little baby, you did not have a distinction between the inside and the outside. You were not like, this is my inside, this is my outside. Everything that babies are doing is exploring their epidermis and their senses as the defining characteristic of self versus context. I touch my face, I feel it. I touch this wall, I don't feel it. Babies spend a lot of time figuring out self versus context. This is the stories and the lessons that we learn while we are walking on the surface of a planet. Healing of duality. So this duality and a sense of self versus context is an artificial implantation because we come from unity consciousness. Before you're a baby, you're a part of unity consciousness where you're like, I'm a part of everything. I touch myself and I feel it. I touch the wall and I feel it. I feel everything. But when you come here in a physicality form, you're like, I touch myself, I feel it. I touch something else, I don't feel it. I make a distinction. The world becomes dualistic, self versus the world. When you fly rainbow lasagna and put that torus shape, that time shape into a higher dimensional reality, you become back to unity consciousness, back to the sense of a blending of the two realities together. Your inner reality of thoughts and dreams and everything that is intangible, and your outer reality of everything that is tangible. What used to be defined as the internal state upon death, as opposed to a conscious death or an ascension transformation, a person goes into a realm entirely of self-creation. Let me go through that again, because that's convoluted. Okay. As opposed to a conscious death or an ascension transformation. So that's what we are all going towards. But in a regular death, what used to be defined as the internal state becomes externalized entirely into a realm of self-creation. A dream is manifested around you upon death that emanates from inside of you. Thought forms become manifest into an experienced non-physical reality that is the direct outgrowth of the inner mental state. As I said, in life, you have a particular momentum that carries you forward, and upon death, there is the manifestation of that inner state into the world around you. Carrying casserole dishes endlessly, because that's what you thought about and did during your physicality state. What you have inside of you is what you will experience externally upon entering your afterlife. In this sense, afterlife can be considered a realm of pure justice. Like, let's say, like, you're a violent psychopath and you're all about rape and murder and destruction and killing. And then upon entering the afterlife, you create for yourself your own reality bubble that's full of all the rape and psychopathology and everything that is harmful. So again, it can be a heavenly or a hellish experience depending upon what your insides are like. If you cultivated coherence, peace, nobility, good value system, love for self and love for others while you were in your living physical presence, then you emit that upon the moment of your death, you would create a world around you of peacefulness. If you are full of fear, negativity, or have a lot of unresolved emotions and trauma, big one there, lower vibrational emotions, not yet at the level of unconditional love, life lessons that have not been processed, then that will be emitted, making it necessary to circulate back around. You literally cannot rise above those lessons. The ballast holds you down. So that is big when I talk about some things that did time experiments, smeared on the membrane of death, voluntary cloning. They've created trauma states for themselves that are unresolved, that keep them in a semi-existence, but also prevent them from truly moving on through wormholes into levels of pure ascension. We are conscious and powerful creators of this physical realm while we are in the physical realm. And I told you about that asymptotic curve. It used to be something would take 20 years to manifest, then 10 years to manifest, now instant manifestation. So I'm going to get into that in here. We are not just emanators of our experience from our minds at the moment of death when we leave the physical realm. We are emanators of experience even while submerged in the physical realm. I'm here in the physical realm, so are all of you in my lovely audience. You are powerful physical creators. You're making your life right now. And then, of course, upon death or ascension, you will absolutely continue to make your life experience. You will continue to manifest the inner into the outer. But the limiting factor is time. So this lesson I recorded 10 years ago in 2010, all right? Or roughly 2010, 2012. What you send out now might take many years in order to actually manifest. And I used to have to tell people this because they'd be like, I'm playing the violin wrong. It doesn't work. I'm like, your violin works perfectly fine. It just takes time. It takes time for these things to happen. The rate of manifestation has sped up considerably upon recording of this lesson in 2012 in the past decade or so, since 2001. It used to be a 20-year manifestation cycle would now take 1 year. Okay, so that's what I was trying to say. 10 years ago when I recorded this lesson, I was like, hey, Something that used to take 20 years to manifest now can take 1 year. Meaning, let's say that you want to build a new business or buy a farm or build a house or something like that, large manifestation project that it used to take 20 years. But upon the recording of that lesson, now it would take about 1 year. 10 years later, now it is 2022. It doesn't even have to take a full year. It can take a month, it can take a week, it can take a day. Be amazed at how quickly these manifestations or externalizations can happen in terms of making something happen. Hold on one moment. Earth is in the process of manifesting a new reality. We are co-experiencers of what is being manifested. So again, part of the getting faster of reality manifestation has to do with the planet, larger holistic being that we are a part of. The third dimension, or the purely materialistic realm, is overlapping with the higher dimensional reality. I call it a 5D plus, meaning the waveform reality. 5D not meaning artificial reality of like augmented reality, feeling slightly better in a smoothie shop. I say that a lot of times in my silly broadcasts, in my silliness, in my serious broadcasts, I should say. Combining these two portions of reality creates an entirely new Earth. To speak that all again in pristine language, the 3D world of pure objective materialism is overlapping with the 5D plus world of pure waveform potentials. And in doing so, creates an entirely new level of reality that is physicality reality overlapped with pure potential waveform reality. That is what Flying Rainbow Lasagna is. It is a blending together of this world of experienced matter and the world of pure potential. And it begins to become a fun, lucid dream. So combining these two portions of reality creates an entirely new Earth. That is where we are headed. I recorded this 10 years ago. Now we're there. Upon this recording, we are here now in 2022. So I said 10 years ago, we're going to get to this place where these two levels of reality overlap. Guess what, everyone? Dun, dun, dun. We are here now. Earth did not die in a corporeal sense of death and decomposition. Earth died, old Earth, or what people call 3D Earth, died in the sense of old timelines have terminated. Get it? Here's the membrane of death. Here's the timeline terminating. But all of us who are listening to this video have shifted away from the membrane of death and onto continued timelines, which go towards the infinite timeline, refocusing. So all of us that are here and that are alive, pat yourselves on the back. Congratulations, because you have successfully navigated 10 years from when I first recorded this lesson through planetary shifts in order to be in this moment now where these two levels of reality are overlapping and we're experiencing a new Earth. You have shifted with Earth. Please spend a moment and remember well those who did not make the shift with you. Like my dear departed cat, Miss Ashley. She did not make the shift with me. She died, or she terminated on one of those other timelines and is not here with me. Same thing with some beloved friends. They simply did not make the shift. Not bad people, not disposable people or objects or organisms or creatures. It did not make the shift in terms of their consciousness and staying alive. And they still are on their afterlife journey of personal refinement and learning what they need to learn in order to become ascended masters in their idealized version of reality. So no one gets thrown out the window. Earth died in the sense that the old timelines have terminated. We are traveling closer and closer to our ideal timeline and the highest possibility. That's going up that central core timeline. There are several options in terms of transmitting one's consciousness, specifically death or ascension. So too can the planet have different options. Our planet's consciousness is obviously choosing planetary ascension. Back to my beautiful painting here. This is planetary ascension. That's what that is about. And the planet is a holistic presence, and we are co-experiencers in that life presence, and we make the choice also. So the planet chooses, and then we make the choice also. Our planet, any of us who are still corporeally alive, woohoo! Should rock out, everyone, if you're corporeally alive on this planet, are also choosing that option because you have not died. Time shifted away from the death membrane onto extended timelines. People are always creating their bodies with their minds. You have been the whole entire time you've been alive. Glinda the Good Witch and the Red Slippers. You've been doing it all along, my dear. You are always creating your sense of personal health with your mind. You're always manifesting the events of your life during your life, often unconsciously, but now everyone who's beautiful students of the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, consciously manifesting your inner realm into your outer realm. That's what this dance is. All of this has to do with doing things consciously. So topical theme here, doing things consciously. Reclaiming areas of oneself that used to be simply obscured by unconsciousness or lack of awareness. That means eating consciously, dreaming consciously, sleeping consciously. But wait, Aurora, doesn't sleep by definition mean becoming unconscious? No. Sleep is a process in which we shift consciousness, go into state changes. You can go deeper and deeper and deeper into mental states, still remembering, like, I'm a person, my name is Aurora, I'm dreaming, and then emerge from that self state, remembering what you dreamed. I do that more and more over this past year, and that's a really positive thing, because upon recording this 10 years ago, I was not able to do that. So I've built my spiritual muscles, and I have much more coherence and less epilepsy and seizures, in the sense of being able to descend into dreaming, know that I'm dreaming in my dreams, and then get back up out of my dreams and carry with me and remember what I did, write it down in my dream notebook. It looks like I can't read it at all, but I wake up in the morning like, oh, I remember what I was dreaming. So sleeping consciously, and then use of the pineal gland. Dying consciously is analogous to lucid dreaming, where one goes from the outer realm of wakefulness to the inner realm of dreaming, seamlessly integrating the two states of awareness. My daytime awareness, where I'm here as Aurora, my nighttime awareness, where I can be anywhere, sometimes teaching classes in the dream world, and then back into my daytime awareness. That is like a miniature version of what you can do between lifetimes, which is what these Tibetan yogis or masters, or whatever they would be called, karmapas, they go from lifetime to lifetime. I was this guy, and then I dove into the afterlife, and then I emerged as this guy, but I remembered that I was guy number one. Now I'm guy number two. When I do the solar meditations and raise my kundalini, which is the energy up my spine, from the base of my spine all the way out to the top of my head, and when I use the Flying Rainbow Lasagna as a visualization, and I make a bridge between myself and the sun, or between myself and galactic consciousness, what I'm doing is learning to manifest my inner reality as an outer experience. So I've been learning to do this for 20 years. I've been learning to play the violin of reality manifestation for many years. I then also teach and exemplify this to others. Something envisioned while in the meditation state is then experienced and recognized in the outer realm. Powerful confirmation of my innate creativity. And again, it used to be something that took a long time to manifest. Like I might imagine something, and then it would take days, weeks, months, or years for it to actually come into being. Now I think about these things while I'm in meditation or doing my Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, and I come out of my dance and it's instantaneously there. So very, very interesting, very gratifying. Like, oh, I danced that into being. That's a new thing. That wasn't there this morning. Flying Rainbow Lasagna, then it's there. The lag time in the 3D realm, which we are moving out of, we used to be a thing, lag time. Like, how much does this lag behind my thoughts and intentions? But manifestation is speeding up. Again, I recorded this 10 years ago, and is now, upon my speaking this, at a very fast pace, because Earth's resonance and frequency is speeding up. This equals your energetic metabolism is going faster. So our ability to perceive and react and process information is also speeding up. Time is relative. Hold on a second, I gotta hit you. A little break for me to pet my dog down here. Our ability to perceive and react and process information is also speeding up. Earth's resonance and frequency is speeding up, everything moving faster on the planet, and that also means that what we can perceive and process intellectually and emotionally is also speeding up. Now get into my whole teaching about time is relative. If your thoughts are moving faster, you can pack many more thoughts into the same amount of objective clock time. So 1 hour on the clock, if your thoughts are moving at whatever, this pace, you can have 100 thoughts. But what if we speed up your thoughts? Then your thoughts are moving at 1,000,000 thoughts per hour. You can have 1,000,000 thoughts packed into that same 1 hour of objective clock time. From William Blake's beautiful, well-known poem, All Beauties of Innocence, to see eternity in an hour. And this is what many people experience while under the influence of some psychedelics and hallucinogenic type of molecules. Psychedelic molecules radically shift your frequency or vibration rate and also your subjective experience of time. There's a relationship of this of DMT to the pineal gland, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is a naturally occurring endogenous brain chemical that comes out of your pineal gland upon the moment of you entering your body when you're in the womb and upon the exiting your body when you die. And I'm not an advocate for the use of DMT or these, rocket ship rides into higher dimensional astral planes with molecular assistance, just in recognition of that. In using supercomputer terminology, but not in embracing transhumanism, I will say that this all equates to a much faster computer processing, or RAM, random access memory. It's an analogy, only not a literalism. But when you are moving at a faster rate, you're processing more bits of data per moment than you could in the past. And that's happening on our planet. This is all dependent upon the internal rate of vibration that each person is experiencing. So for example, I used this already, an idea about starting a business or building a home that used to take 20 years to become realized, that by 2010, when I recorded the lesson, it would take 1 year. Now in 2022, it can happen in a very short time span, and even instant manifestation experiences can occur. Snap. Because Earth and everybody on Earth and the entire cosmos, big, is vibrating at a much faster rate. The flying rainbow lasagna as my personal method for transcending death. Now we get a little bit into my personal story. It was created during my personal experience of coming into this physical body, during which I was psychically attacked by the force of pure evil. So I don't speak about that much. And there actually was a lot of trauma involved in that made it something that was always difficult for me to speak about. Maybe one day I'll do a deeper sharing on this, but I'll just say that it wasn't simply an ordinary death or an ordinary metabolic death by accident or injury. Like there were many other aspects of what was happening in terms of brain neurological attack and assault. And that what I did as an interdimensional otherworldly presence was create this spontaneous oscillation in the DNA of this body to create portals through which I can come and inhabit the body. And I am Aurora, and I've come from another place. The attack caused neurological damage, and the body would not have been able to support life anymore. If I didn't oscillate this body with the flying rainbow lasagna, the body would have been dead, or like maybe in a hospital bed or some vegetative state, like a brain death, a non-moving person. However, instead of dying, I created the flying rainbow lasagna to die without dying. So this is big. It's everything that I'm talking about. Other options that can happen when you press the infinite improbability drive. You can die, but not actually die. What it actually meant was entering into another realm. Instead of going internally into a purely self-created realm of the afterlife, I created this portal, which is a blending of the two realities. My internal realm and also the externally manifested, formerly third dimensional realm, which is now a higher dimensional realm. Flying rainbow lasagna as the end result of spirit plus matter, or energy plus matter. You've got E equals MC squared. When you put E and MC squared on the same side of the equation, and my face is the equal sign, what does it equal? It equals flying rainbow lasagna. It equals infinity. Because the dimensions, okay, so my internal realm and the external manifested reality is now a higher dimensional realm. Because the dimensions all stack upon each other like a pyramid, they're all parts of the same thing. So what used to be the reality simply of the third dimension now has many other dimensions that overlay it and imbue it with more meaning and more flexibility. This is big because I say this with impeccable language all the time. The third dimensional reality is a place where you already have been existing in time and accessing or waving your hands and arms and legs around in the fifth dimension and higher, simply doing it unconsciously, not fully present in the way that those body movements of your mind are creating the world around you. And that now this blending together of the inner world and the outer world makes the world a lucid dream. I'm aware that I think these thoughts, I feel these feelings, I emanate them into the world around me, and then I see them in the world around me. Pardon me, I wanted to warn you that I'm going to sneeze. I couldn't even get it out. Bless me. Yes, blending together the inner world and the outer world, blending together the world of objective materialism and thought, consciousnesses, and non-physical presences. I died, but I did not die. Death here is defined as going over a threshold or going on a journey or transcended from where I was. Again, death not as an end, but transcendence or end of a chapter. Everything that I've experienced since the moment I FRL'd or flying over lasagna has been a result of this melding of realities. So for me, for the past 20 years, since 2001, since October 8th of 2001, I've been experiencing the blending together of these two realities, of my inner self state and my outer experienced reality. There is no longer a distinctly separated physical realm and non-physical realm. They blend together. There's now a coming together, a blending of the two realms. Like if you take the color red and the color blue and you put them together, you get, everybody, what do you get? Violet, you get purple. In this violet world or purple world, the higher dimensional world, everyone on the surface of Earth is waking up to their own innate divinity. Got it? The external manifestation of the internal self state for me exemplifies as the ascension process in this planet. Everything is waking up. Everything is ascending, all waking up to their own powerful inner co-creative imaginations and inner Christ consciousness. That is the new reality we are emanating forward. That is what is happening on this planet right now, this moment, this weekend. More about Christ consciousness. The mythology of Christianity on earth does give us some idea of what ascension is, talking about Christ consciousness as associated with the third eye, indigo, brow chakra, the higher faculties of the non-physical anatomy. If we don't take things too literally, and this is all about mythology and Egypt and Tibet, we have a beautiful story that exists about a person who was an avatar, a container for the divine presence, who came to earth, was an otherworldly being, and inhabited a physical form specifically to be a servant to humanity and to act as an example of what happens when you activate your Christ chakra. Many stories or mythologies of the many healings and miracles that Jesus Christ, or also AKA Yeshua of Judea, was said to have performed. So mythologies and stories, anecdotal apocrypha of healing lepers, healing different diseases, raising the dead, healing blindness, walking on water, fishes in the loaves, manifesting nourishment for people, and talking directly to the environment or being in touch with the weather control. These can all be taken non-literally as this is the story of what happens when a person becomes a full spectrum human, all right? The special things that he was able to perform, you will also be able to perform one day. And that's part of the teachings of the Christian religion, which I think are very positive. Healing of disease, as I said, instant manifestation of food, water into wine, levitation, walking on water. That's just the tip of the iceberg. Much, much more. Each one of us has divine innate connection to Christ consciousness. Each one of us is the living embodiment of Christ. We need to connect to the source for guidance and nourishment. That's this up here. That's also this over here, the source. About how to be the living Christ here. We need guidance and nourishment from the great teacher. We are part of a grid or a network of many people connected together in Christ consciousness. I am one facet on a much, much larger crystal, or one cell of a retina of a much, much larger eye. All of you guys also one retina cell. The story of what happened to Jesus Yeshua, how he died or was killed, and then how he arose, is the story of ascension, the transcendence of death. Whether the crucifixion is taken literally or looked at as the embodiment of a mythology or a template for experience, and which is a world mythology. And this goes back to ancient Osiris in Egypt, and also Deganawida in Iroquois tradition. Let me write that one out. There's not that much good writing on this figure, on this historical presence. Mostly he is described as the peacemaker who created the Iroquois Confederacy. Deganawida. That is a very sacred name of a very sacred being who is part of the indigenous Native Americans of North America, that also was said to have been conceived of a virgin birth, performed miracles in their early childhood and infancy, grew to manhood, and had a sense of mission and purpose in bringing peace to the world, faced adversity, and then did not die, but instead transcended or simply rose up. And so those are different levels, like the same story through different cultural filters. So please take it as such. The Tigana-Wida personality myth is incredibly beautiful. It's worth looking into. Like I said, I couldn't find a good article to link to, but I remember reading about it. It was easier to find many years ago. And there are stories of others who have died and risen again. Reminders to those of us in amnesia due to genetic degradation that you do not have to die. Remember, we come from an antediluvian world where nobody was a gutterball. Nobody died. This is the message I bring to you with the Flying Rainbow Lasagna, and which has also been brought here by different previous avatars with divine guidance for humanity to bring everyone to this point where consciousness is emanating a new reality on a planetary level. Jesus, Yeshua, was violently crucified, then spent some time in a tomb, and then rose up, and there was no physical body left behind. This is the idea of ascension. It is also said to have happened to Lao Tzu, the founder of Taoism from Asia. Also, what is said, like I said, to Tigana-Wida, many different spellings of that from the oral tradition. Also, biblical figures preceding Jesus Christ, Yeshua. They are named Enoch, Elijah, and Ezekiel. Ezekiel of the very well-known chariots of fire, wheels within wheels, biblical passages. They all transcended death. They were, quote unquote, taken up. They did not die. There's a cross-cultural tendency to remind people of beings who died but did not die, who transcended the physical realm and went into a higher state. So this happens to many different beings in different cultures, so that there is some truthful footing for anybody in any time, place to be like, that's like this person that I know from my culture that died, but they didn't die. State change, like I've said earlier in this broadcast, from solid to liquid to gas to plasma to pure energy. Solid would be ice, liquid is water, gas is steam. Then up from steam, there's plasma, which is like fire. And then up from there is pure energy. This is a change of consciousness and a raising of vibration. Thank you, everyone. I know this is a marathon. Thank you for sticking with me. The Flying Rainbow Lasagna is a doorway that exists in conjunction with Christ consciousness. For many years, there was a blockade beyond which humanity's consciousness could not connect. We're not at lesson 18 yet, but we'll get there soon. The semester is almost over. I saved this stuff to the end of the semester for a reason. It's all about the genetic degradation and planetary invasion. Basically, before the planetary invasion, before the fall from grace, and before the fall of Atlantis, the antediluvian culture, we all were connected in Christ. We all had our higher faculties completely activated. The genetic degradation was a taking away of self from God's self-state, and a plunge into amnesia. Each one of us was put into a forgetfulness of that you are actually God, you're actually divine, you're actually Christ, you're actually part of this Christ world. And this also explains the last 2,000 years of the dark ages of humanity that we've gone through, even after Jesus, Yeshua, was here as a messenger of peace. Like, he was here 2,000 years ago. How come we didn't have the golden age? Because there was a limitation here. Humans have been on that perilous journey of the connection between the brow chakra and the crown chakra. 2,000 years to be able to raise that energy up to this level. And that's a time during which there is information coming in through the eye of insight, but not necessarily guided by the great cosmic librarian. A lot of people that have had huge manias, they're like, I'm God, or I'm Christ, but without the rest of the contextualization of that realization that makes a person act accurately and healthfully in the holistic whole contextual presence. Now we are at the singularity, and we have connected to the crown chakra. What is the singularity? Transhumanism talks about it as being a blending together of human and machine. Please watch my technology talk number 4 with Charlie B on my Patreon, on my Patreon. The singularity as, sorry, hold on a minute. There's too many distracting voices outside. Hold on. The singularity at the center convergence point of my sculpture as being the convergence of all of these timelines, different from science's description of a transhumanist singularity. The singularity is the place where we connect to God through the crown chakra. We're at that point in human history now. We are at that point of personal and planetary ascension now. We have connected to the source. Earth is on her planetary journey to ascension and higher consciousness. And so too are each one of us individual journeys to higher ascension, ascending together, personal ascension and planetary ascension. The reason for this is that the flying rainbow lasagna, open source code for your DNA, has allowed us to transcend this blockage between brow and crown. There was a blockage here, just like I talk about the little ant that cannot walk across a piece of paper because there's an obstacle here. But what if you can fold that paper and make the two edges connect? There's a blockage here. I can't get that energy from my insight over here up to God and get that level of inner directives and guidance and love and nourishment. Well, you can. From the past 20 years, you can, using the flying rainbow lasagna. So I figured it out and created it spontaneously 20 years ago, and I've been here in my presence, doing it in this body and emanating outward. I say open source code for your DNA, how to do it. Like, here's the template, here's how you do it, take it and run with it. And then many, many people have taken it and run with it, which is exactly what I want. I drink to you, my hat is off to you. I thank you for embodying the flying rainbow lasagna as the genetic solution so that one can reconnect to Christhood, to God's self, and transcend any genetic blockages that were the end result of trauma and amnesia on this planet and in planetary invasion. Now impulses can get directly through, both from higher realms down into the physical, and also from the physical embodiment up to higher consciousness, two-way highway. Remember the flying rainbow lasagna as a technique for folding time, space, and consciousness. And you can fold the edges until they overlap, avoiding any blockages. I already did that. For thousands of years, Earth as a planetary consciousness was cut off from or diminished in its capacity to tune in to Christ consciousness. Think of it as being in a cellular dead zone. But now the flying rainbow lasagna allows any being with DNA to tune into Christ consciousness beyond the blockades that were placed there on a genetic level. So lesson 18 is all about the planetary invasions, dark stuff, it's traumatic stuff. I'll go into it extensively. The flying rainbow lasagna is the happy good stuff. This is what you can do in order to transcend those blockages that kept us, or one, or the planet, kept beings from remembering that you're Christ and reconnecting to all of that amazing Christ energy and pure insight and wisdom and guidance and nourishment. So just like starting a new business, you start off a new business, you're bootstrapping yourself on up, you have minimal money. And what you need to do is run your business, save your money, and then save up enough to buy your equipment so that then you can become really efficient. And then it makes it possible to really start earning your money effectively. So if we say like making cookies or making pies, like at first you're rolling out the dough by hand, you can only make 5 pies a day. You can only have a certain amount of success selling 5 pies a day. But at a certain point, you save your profits and you're able to invest in an automated pie maker. Then you can make 5,000 pies a day. And then you can really begin selling a lot of pies and begin making a lot of money. That is exactly what Christ and your higher faculties are all about. That's what's going on with Earth consciousness. Earth consciousness is still in the startup phase. For the past 2,000 years, it's been bootstrapping. So Earth consciousness has been bootstrapping in the startup phase of what it is to be a cosmic consciousness for the past 2,000 years. Just trying to get itself together with resources to make that vital connection. The equipment for greater efficiency. The automated pie maker is connection to Christ, emphasized in my notes, connection to Christ. Not that this is a machine, but that it is a vital piece of equipment. Your higher faculties, vital. Once you have your Christ chakra spinning properly and in connection with higher consciousness, you have a direct connection to the source. And you then get all of the ideas you could possibly need about anything, ideas about anything, information about anything, comprehension about anything, not mere survival ideas, like how to rub two sticks together and make fire. Way beyond that. Not just merely how to survive, but how to thrive, how to get all of the physical resources that you need, plus opportunities in love. Cosmic love abstractly from the material world. You get everything from the source. And when I'm talking about cosmic love, like I'm talking about something that really sustains you on a cellular level. We're talking about cognition, comprehension, love, food, companionship, guidance, teacher, knowingness. I don't even have all the words for it, but that you get everything from the source. It's the energy that you need to fuel your reality creation factory. And you now have a direct connection to it. That's why it's been taking 2,000 years. Like, one day I'm going to get that automated pie maker. Keep on rolling out pies. One day, keep on rolling out pies. One day, keep on rolling out pies. Now we are finally at that moment where you get this big, shiny, new automated pie maker. Dun, dun, dun. Christ consciousness and connection to the divine. And that allows you to be more efficient and more have greater levels of resources and make reality more efficiently and more effectively. You can know anything and make anything. Your reality creation mechanism is online, operational, and hugely empowered. That is also what happens when you connect mentally to the sun. You get a huge influx of energy. So when I talk about sun gazing, I get cellular energy. I get sustained on that sense. I feel more euphoric, energetic, and more, like I just had food, like energized and vital. And I also get ideas. I'm like, something, I really need to do a workshop about blah, blah, blah. Or something, I really need to rearrange my furniture like this. Or something, I really need to walk down this street or go here or do this. Like, I get directives from the true sun. And this becomes greater life directives. The money, quote unquote, that this factory makes is health and vitality and positive life experiences and spiritual power. So once you get your Christhood functional and your higher faculties functional, you get more health, more vitality, more joy, have a greater quality of life experience, more positive experiences, more of a sense of spiritual power. This is emphasized huge in my notes. I want everybody to just listen and reverberate. I know it's been a long broadcast. You're here at the finish line. Please listen. You are a wealthy person when you are able to direct the events of your life. I'm going to read it again. You are a wealthy person when you are able to direct the events of your life. People here in this time place, they think you are a wealthy person if you have this many dollars or euros or gold bars stored up in your bank account. You are a wealthy person when you have the capacity to direct the events of your life. Because you can have millions of dollars in the bank, but if you are not free to spend your money freely, you're not a wealthy person. And you can think now about someone like, if we say like whatever, Princess Diana, like she had like gold crowns and all sorts of different things that were technically in her possession. She was in ownership of, but she was not behaviorally free to actually do with her wealth what she wished to do because of a series of cultural and other government level constraints. She was constrained. Just use her as one example. There are many, many people in our world that might have material wealth, but do not have the ability to direct events in their life. So each one of us, we are saying, hooray, my automated pie machine is now finally fully functional. My Christ chakra is connecting to the source, and I'm doing all of these things. I'm a wealthy person because I am creating reality, directing the events of my life. That is true wealth. And of course, you need to have clean food, clean water, safe places to live, all of those things. That also is part of wealth generation. Please understand that I'm talking about freedom. You're becoming unfettered or unbound. Your divine connection through Christ and using the flying rainbow lasagna to connect to the source means you're connecting to God, claiming your own innate divinity, and you're creating and manifesting your reality directly. In the end, there's no need to die. You do not have to manifest death. So what life looks like now that you've got your automated pie making, reality making equipment up and functioning, you're like, hooray, I can now manifest anything that I need in my life. I can make this, I can make that, I can make that, I can go here, I can go here, I can go here, I can make anything happen. Whatever, I want to learn to go hang gliding, I can make that happen. I want to learn how to dance a tango, I can make that happen. I want to travel to a place, I can make that happen. That is money. So, that is wealth. Most people, when they think, I want money, what they really are wishing for is I want freedom. I want self-determination. I want the capacity to go where I want to go. In the end, there's no need to die, bypassing the distinction between earthly reality versus heavenly reality. So one of these things about that movie, What Dreams May Come, this man dies and he goes to an afterlife world that is heaven, where he paints with his mind. He makes things happen directly with his mind. When you can be free and make things happen consciously as a co-creator in divine partnership with Christ consciousness and God, the divine presence, you are creating a heavenly reality while you're in a semi-physical embodiment state. It is a mixture of the two. You are mixing together the earthly realm of matter and the realm of pure spirit, pure mentality, pure energy. And that becomes this new experience of heaven on earth. Flying Rainbow Lasagna is the mix of these two realities. That's big. Do it in your own body and it radiates outward into the co-mingled experience, the co-experienced experience. As of 2010, when I recorded this, we were in transition. Now we're in 2022 and we are pretty much in the experience of heaven on earth. You might be like, Aurora, attitude. I don't see heaven on earth. I see it like crap and this and that and everything like that. Don't worry, because I'm going to get into this. This is also the closing of karmic loops, time loops and cycles. Part of what is necessary to do in order to make it through the wormhole, letting go of sandbags, letting go of ideas, relationships, and genetic tendencies in order to rise higher. We are coming out of that moment. That's what's going on. We've been resolving negative time loops in order to get onto what people are calling the organic ascension timeline. It has been absolutely essential to resolve negative time loops or repeating cycles of cause and effect karma. That it is a healing of these ideas, relationships, genetic tendencies in order to be able to go into the ascension process. And the genetic tendencies heal the original trauma. What we'll talk about with lesson 18, heal the planetary invasion, heal the genetic degradation, heal the thing that made everybody mortals instead of immortals. And this relates to the ancient Egyptian sense of getting you're rowing your own bark, your own raft, rowing your raft to be able to make it to the sun bark of Ra and cross the Duat, that you are becoming immortal. That is what this is. You can think of it as an afterlife journey, or you can think of it as a continuation of a lucid dream, a dream world that also has a physical material presence, that at a certain point, there is no distinction that is made between these two things. Profound healing of the ancient planetary ongoing trauma. Also, healing in terms of diseases that come from thoughts and energy patterns that have gone awry. I talked about that in the lesson about cancer, healing those disease forms, like the blueprints for disease. You're going to heal those disease forms. This is how you will do the same types of miracles that Jesus, Yeshua Christ did in terms of healing the blueprint for disease and making disease no longer be manifest. Big, big, big stuff. Letting go of all of the genetic tendencies which no longer serve. That's a lot of this stuff that was put into us as genetic diminishment. And existing in a state of total health and cellular repair. This is emphasized in my notes, the connection between the Flying Rainbow Lasagna and eternal life. The connection between the Flying Rainbow Lasagna and Christhood and eternal life. that is what that is all about. That this dance, I say it is a regenerative dance, because you are dancing back to a divine connection, dancing back to, I call it jokingly, return to factory settings, which is what you do on your phone when it gets extremely messed up with your DNA. Return to factory settings, that you are dancing your DNA into its rectification patterns. And I say this all the time in my class, DNA is a bridge of light between what you are as a physical embodied person experiencing time and the multiple timeline branching realities. Dance your DNA in new patterns, you experience new timelines and new reality patterns. You're creating the externalization of your internal realm. You change your thoughts and your emotional state, and you then outer manifest your emotional state outward with others. And then again, it's a collaborative art project. It is not just done on your own. So I know that was an extremely long broadcast, marathon event. Hooray, made it to the finish line. I open the floor now to questions, comments, and sharing. Let me go first to Chloe's question. She says, if I think we are living in a simulation, is the duat what you need to cross to exit this sim? So again, people in ancient Egypt did not have to deal with the sense of a simulation. They did deal with what the Hindus called Maya, or illusion, a world of illusion. The initial amnesia that happened from the event of genetic degradation, of going from being immortals, gods and goddesses, no gutter balls, into physical embodied people that eat scrambled eggs in the morning and have to find some way in order to stay alive in the world, okay? That is what the beings that were understanding crossing the duat of 5 or 10 or 15 or 26,000 years ago, that's what they were dealing with. We are now dealing with another level of reality wherein there is nano wetware in various forms of stuff that is put into people's bodies that make them emitters of 5G, 5G being an anti-life force, anti-Christ energy grid that's around our planet, Starlink satellites, Bluetooth technology, like in everything, connectivity in everything, that is basically making an EMF soup. This is an electromagnetic apparatus and sensory organ. And to have all of this negative, harmful, and erroneous electromagnetic information surrounding us and passing through us at all times is something that previous masters and ascenders have not had to face. Have to be a huge badass in order to face this stuff and ascend right now. So in terms of exiting the simulation, please know that you are in an augmented reality. You and everyone here are still organic, cellular, biological beings. What has happened is there's then an overlay of reality put on top of that true somatic cellular level. That's the overlays of things that have been sprayed in those nasty white lines in the sky for a very long amount of time that have created toxicity events inside of people's bodies, and also an artificial neurology and fascia inside of people's bodies. Then there's also the stuff that was of similar substance, that is an exotic substance, not an earthly occurring substance, that is also semi-dimensional or quantum in its level, in its what it is. Semi-genetic, semi-quantum, semi-dimensional, like it responds to consciousness. It's not just dead, stupid matter. That type of smart matter and smart dust have come into the human biology, including, as I was saying, those Voldemorts, the unmentionables that have been happening throughout our world. And all of those things have created an unreal sense of reality. That's just like being on a drug all the time. Reality is still reality. So what you call the sim is a distorted view of physicality reality that is happening due to electromagnetic and biochemistry manipulations and of artificialities, of technology, some of which is terrestrial, some of which is non-terrestrial or extra dimensional. But real reality still exists. The true sun still exists in the sky, even though there is something that often is broadcasting in its place or amplifying or diminishing its true signal. I fly rainbow lasagna with the true sun all the time, and I send out the groceries to you guys because I know not everybody has it, their violin. Not everybody is able to play the violin exactly. They're still learning, like I can. So yes, Trish says sub-realities. You can think of it as sub-realities, but what it really is a world of illusion. not the same illusion that the Hindus called Maya or the Buddhists called Maya. That's the illusion that, like, I dreamed I was a butterfly, and then the butterfly dreamed he was a man. Like, this is like ancient Taoist type of stuff. That's valid. This is the type of illusion where something technologically is put against your willpower inside of your body or around or upon or surrounding your body that makes you think and feel things that aren't actual things, or you might see things that aren't actually there, or not see things that are actually there, or feel a sensation like I feel something touching my shoulder, but maybe it's not actually there. Maybe there's nothing touching my shoulder. Maybe there's just the neural stimulation that I think that there is something touching my shoulder. We begin to have to deal with a discernment level that, again, previous masters have not had to deal with. We are becoming ascended masters in this incredible situation or circumstance that requires an immense amount of inner guidance and capacity to discern between signals of truthfulness and signals of non-truthfulness. And so the sim is a complete construct of non-truthfulness. But lucky to tell you, I'm happy to report, one is not fully uploaded into a virtual reality yet. So there is still that overlap where you still have a physical reality of eating food and using toilet paper. Good job, because you actually want that. You actually want to be in the world where you eat physical food and drink physical coffee and do all of that. Because the alternative, I call it San Junipero, like the Black Mirror series on Netflix that had an episode about someone who was like, going to die. And instead they kind of go into a coma state that is San Junipero. Put on your magical headset, and you go into an inner world, and in the inner world, she could walk, she could talk, everything was great, her body was healthy. And that is a type of imprisonment. That is not, because once you're out of your physicality body, you're leaving behind all of your divine, miraculous physical architecture. That is what you're really connected to and connecting to God with. This is your God architecture. Your birthday suit is incredibly valuable. You do not want to go into some kind of a fully virtual reality. So we have been in an augmented reality. How do you get out of the augmented reality? You must reconnect to true Christ, the true light of true information, the true sun, the true God divine presence. And I offer the Flying Rainbow Lasagna as a tool to be able to perform that reconnection. Find whatever tool works for you. This is what I have to share. It's my gift to share to you. And it is what I do in terms of superseding the lies and the limitations that have been created in this world, basically to hijack or subvert the ongoing planetary ascension. Do not go into fear like, oh no, hijack or subvert, like will we make it there? We're baby sea turtles, are we all gonna get eaten? No, you will not all get eaten. You will make it exactly to where you need to go. I want you to know, just like in the Book of the Dead and the book of the Egyptian book and in the Tibetan book, can't game the system. God is not stupid. I want to be like this. God is not stupid. God is not stupid. And anybody that thinks that they can game the system is themselves mentally challenged, mentally limited. You cannot game the system. God is literally the supreme intelligence and knows everything. Like, you can't lie. It's just like nonsense, because even higher dimensional beings at my level of Aurora, we don't lie. And it's a nonsense proposition to think that you can lie. You can see everything. There's no way to pretend. There's no way to lie. So in the sense of ongoing planetary ascension, it cannot be hijacked. It cannot be stopped. It is inevitable. You are inevitability particles. You are there. You've already made it there. What has happened is there's been some diminishment. Diminishment is not the word, delay, distortion, illusion that's been going on. I really want to tell you, like, you guys, like, you're already there. What's happening is that there are these illusions that are in front of people, making people think and feel that they're not there. Then people emit those realities of being not there yet. So the great reclaiming in this moment is recognizing that you are there, you are emitting your reality, you are emitting an ascended experience in a true reality, and that you are not stopped or hindered or diminished or diluted in any way by any illusions that are trying to distract you. That's really the only thing that can go on right now, just distraction. When that's kind of like, I had my neighbors outside. They're nice people. I like them. But it was just very distracting to have those voices going on while I'm trying to talk about stuff here That's really the only thing that can happen in terms of our ongoing planetary ascension. Be like, come on, guys, like, I'm trying to listen to Christ. Like, can you just quiet down a little bit? That's what it's like. Or like, I'm trying to listen to the true light of abstract, pure divine truth. Can we just quiet down a little bit? That's what all of this EMF, 5G, Bluetooth, computer crapola stuff, that's what that all is. And all of that stuff emanates from cultures that are unhealed cultures, like the cultures from Mars and other places that have not resolved their emotional baggage and that attempt to use technology in order to sustain their consciousness when they should just go to peace. They should just go into non-being at this point. So ongoing negotiations for them to go into non-being, and each one of us has the empowerment capacity to be able to say, I exist in the pure light of Christ, of truthfulness, of true information, and shall not be drawn into interactions with illusions. And the illusions are beyond the illusions, the regular occurring illusions from several thousand years ago. There's even newer and worse and more distracting illusions than ever were before. Fun stuff, right? But in terms of crossing the duat, we're in this moment of what the planet is doing. The planet has already exited the physical, material, corporeal reality and is already transiting and transitioning to, along with all of us, a newer, ascended or expanded state. And that is this time of confusion. So not only is there technological augmented reality that's placed upon us, the experiencers, there's just the regular confusion that people sometimes feel when they're like, I'm not in the old world anymore. Like, where the F am I? What's going on? That is normal and natural and just part of the growth process. The other stuff is not part of the growth process and is a complete aberration, makes me feel angry and should not be there. But some amount of confusion is normal. Always rely upon your own innate divine connection. Please know that you are God, that God is real, that there is a very real divine presence that is inside of you, there is no distance between you and the sun, there is no distance between you and God, God is inside of you, and that it's merely confusion or a sense of something else that distracts one from that remembrance and connection with God's self. But all of this is the journey of remembering God's self, and that moment of ascension is, aha, I am God. And all of us have that moment, and the planet has that moment. When you exit the sim, again, it will not necessarily look like floating in blackness or floating in void. It might absolutely look like a world where you have experiences, or you have an individuation, or you have events that are going on. However, there is a new level of empowerment in the sense of being able to create, manifest, and direct the events of your life. And that is what I have emphasized. You are a wealthy person when you are able to direct the events of your life. So you can think of it as like, hey, like, if it makes you feel happy, hey, everybody on this planet has already died, but you're in your afterlife and you still have to pay your Geico bills. I'm joking about that. I always joke about my Geico bills. There was a good show that was called Dead Like Me. This is again from many years ago, but worth checking out, where this young woman dies because a toilet seat falls on her head from the space center, like circling around the planet. And so she dies, and then she's only like in between, she hasn't actually transcended. And she used to work for this kind of like temporary agency, like doing office work. And she just ends up being in a different body, but still working for the same temp agency. It's like, wow, look at that. Like, just picked up where you left off. Yeah. And still had to do all these different assignments and other stuff like that. It's kind of like saying, like, there's no way to avoid your fate or avoid what you deserve or avoid your life lessons. They're gonna happen, even if a toilet seat from the space station falls on your head and kills you. Like, you're still gonna have to do stuff and deal with your SHIT, no matter what world or level of reality you are in. That's it. That's what's going on. So you could say, like, we all died in 2012, or we died from a nuclear missile, or we died from this, or we died from that. But when I look around, I'm like, well, I still have a car, and I still have to make sure gas goes in it, and I still have a body, and I still have to make sure that food and energy goes into my body. So all of these things help us to be, I would say, accommodative of physical sensorium of reality, even while at a certain point, what will happen is you will transcend the physical sensorium of reality as you emit a story that is palatable to your mind about how you no longer need food, or how you no longer need a car, or why cars no longer exist, or why you no longer have to pay your Geico bill. Trish says, direct the events and then you direct the million. Very interesting. Melissa says, so thankful for your invention of smatter. Smatter being spirit matter. Thank you very much. This is just one example of how intelligent God is by sending the answer to any problem. So amazing to see how great God is and creative. Thank you, and thank you for that comment, and absolutely in agreement. I'm continually amazed by the divine presence, the divine intelligence, God as the ultimate artist, God as the ultimate creator. I know is an overused word, but everything that we have is from God, even the sense of energy. Like energy, like what an amazing thing to even think about. Like today I thought of a thing, I invented energy, and then we all use energy. We get into these levels that are really profound, higher levels that involve that recognition of and connection to God. And then even the very last recognition, which is recognizing that God is self, that is big, important stuff, but you don't have to rush the journey. So on all of this, the real acceptance, like even though I know sometimes people are like, I'm over it, let's go already. You don't have to rush the journey. Please know in your heart that your ascension cannot be stolen from you, even if your neighbors upstairs are not ascending and they're listening to heavy metal music and you're like, quiet down up there, I'm trying to ascend. No one else can stop you from your personal ascension. Same thing with the planet. Nothing can stop the planetary ascension. Nothing, not 5G or nano wetware or Voldemort or impure food or genetically modified objects going into our food supply. None of that stuff can stop the ascension. It is absolutely inevitable. So please be in supreme faith about that. And then also, as we go through this process, we are very much tying up time loops. It is worthy, is what I'm trying to say. It's not just like, oh, scrubbing out more socks, more dirty socks, more dirty socks. The dirty socks that we're scrubbing out right now that actually it's like, that's not my job. That's not my job. That's not my job. This actually all comes from stuff that is emanations of a very ancient time that is all being resolved right now. Ancient time that has to do with Atlantis, that has to do with this planet, that has to do with other planets like the Orion star, the Orion arm of our Milky Way galaxy, and conflicts that have happened on an enormous time scale and enormous galactic scale. All of this stuff is being resolved right now. So please know that that is happening. And also please know that the manifestation time lag is almost nothing at this point. So you're like, you know something? I just thought of a solution to everything, to everythingness. It is instantly manifested. Everything, I'm trying to give this to you as a final positive thing to end upon. Many people can imagine the end of everything in a second. And then the sun exploded and everything went kablooey and it all happened in an instant and everything was gone. Can you imagine a creation event that happens in a moment? A rectification event that happens in a moment. The idea, because people could imagine, yep, today's the day I woke up, had a cup of coffee, and then the sun exploded and everything went kablooey. But can you imagine today is the day that I woke up, had a cup of coffee and a nice piece of toast, and then reality changed and became the most loving, divinely connected, amazingly healed and transformed place in an instant. That's what I want everybody to be putting into your mental factory of creation, to focus on those possibilities of reality. Radical, instantaneous, positive, healing, freedom, restructuring, that you can build everything in a day as opposed to destroy everything in a day. So how about, I'll open the floor to more questions and other things like that, but I think that's what I'm going to end the recording on. And also if Salu is still here, I know that you had questions. I don't know if you want to share it in the recording, but if there's anything that I can answer for you, now is a great time to do Q&A. And you're welcome to unmute or to say things in the chat. Just gonna give everybody a minute there. I will end the recording for right now. So profound thanks to everybody who's been a part of this. Thank you very much.